Hello, 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 everybody. As you can see, we've come to sunny South Africa and Mount Panorama, Bathurst, otherwise known. We have got your Super Sprint Sunday, SimNet Super Sprint Sunday underway, brought to you by Formula Racing League, sim racing at its very best. I'm your host for the evening, Greg, and joining me along for the ride is Mr. Jack Prentice. Nice to have you, buddy. Welcome back.
Good evening, and a pleasure to be here as always, as we head to probably the toughest track on the calendar, not named Nürburgring Nordschleife. I like to liken it as the Monaco of the mountains, because of how tight and twisty, very difficult to pass it can sometimes be here. We're going to talk a little bit more about the standings. Obviously, we're now nearly halfway through the season, aren't we? Of the Super Bowl, round 4, aren't we? So, yeah, bang on, really, halfway through the season. Throughout this weekend, throughout this grouping of races, so to speak. So we're going to go through the AM standings now. There's a couple of drivers who are not here at the moment because of the issues, shall we say, with Xbox and the G-Portal servers. That's nothing new there as far as G-Portal is concerned. We're going to start with the AM standings, starting in the lead. You can see in 12th place is Alexander Kalugin. He's leading the AM standings, and he is 1 point ahead of Jordan Marchal, the ever-improving Frenchman, who has, I think he's missing for this race, but the drop score will come into effect there. Jamie Thacker, who's currently in 8th, you can see in the practice session so far, the quickest AM so far, is a further 8 points back, on 44 points ahead of Michael Coppins' Ferrari in 4th place. Gavin Jerry Moore is 5th in the 296, the 186 Ferrari. And in 6th place is Paul Trotman in the Lexus, ahead of Daniel Duda, the Polish driver, using the championship. In 7th, Dale Kelleher is currently in 8th, ahead of Darren Mark Davis, one of the commentary OGs. And Piotr Spazniak in 10th, with Danny Felix in 11th, bringing up the rear, let's say, of the full-time drivers. Now going up to the Silver Championship, you can see there, and that's Daniel Starkloff, who's currently leading so far, 46 points. He's 4 points clear of Nikita Chatmazov, who has a 30-point penalty for not checking in. So that will do real damage to the Serbian's title charge. Lee Kolpitz, who's back after missing last week, he's currently in 3rd position, 6 points off of Starkloff at the top, ahead of Chris Gedman in 4th, with Brooklyn Donkin in 5th place. He's currently the fastest silver driver you can see there. And Alexander Yablonsky in 6th. Michael van der Waal is 7th, ahead of Luke Richings in 8th, Marco Lino in 9th, and Reinhard Serpentine in 10th. Michael Imbrastulli is 11th, ahead of Johnny Sharp. Serafino Gabino is 13th, having had a difficult campaign, with Maximilian Morniveg in 14th and last in silver. We'll quickly get to the pros now, because I'm aware that qualifying is about to start. So we can see at the top there is Fabio Travaglioli, currently 2nd in running today, ahead of Adam Sharp, just 1 point behind in the McLaren. Joe Waters currently 3rd on 45 points, 4 points off of Adam Sharp, ahead of Jared Vermeulen, back after a difficult, I think, finish to the race last week. He won, obviously, race 1, but did not finish in race 2. He's currently in 4th place, ahead of Gordon Brown in the Lamborghini. Francois de Bont in the BMW is 6th, ahead of Andrew Eden's Aston Martin in 7th. Vaclav Poshwischil is 8th in his new Porsche for this season, with Daniel Crossman, who's struggling with connectivity issues, currently in 9th. Wouter Heijmans is 10th, the quick but sometimes erratic Dutchman, who's struggling to get to grips with this new series. I expect he'll improve as the season goes on. Is 10th, ahead of Mr. Overtaker in 11th. Paul Vidler is 12th, another man who's quicker than his results show, and he's back after missing last week. Matteo D'Amica is 13th, ahead of Morgan Grayson, 14th in the Porsche. Luke Prentice is 15th, having retired from the series, with Josh Clayton in 16th on -30.
So thank you for that, Jack. Obviously, for those who might be new to the Super Sprint Sunday, your schedule for this evening is we're about to go into a sprint qualifying, but as you can see, there's a 15-minute timer on there. Sprint qualifying done a little bit differently in FRL. The sprint qualifying allows the drivers to go out for one flying lap anytime within the 15-minute segment. That be Pro, Silver, and AM can all go out at any given time they wish. As we're going to pick up the first driver to go out, as it is getting pretty dark out there. So after we finish with this sprint qualifying, we'll go on to a 20-minute sprint race set by the grid that you're about to watch being made under this qualifying. Then we will make a small interlude as we leave the server for the admins to reverse the grid, taken out of all the drivers that completed 75% of the race. So once that's been reversed, we will rejoin the server. We'll give you some highlights in the interim, and then we go into a 40-minute sprint with a mandatory single pit stop. So we are following Donkin round currently, and he's going to be our first man. Hopefully, to go and set a time. Now, what do you make of this, Jack? Obviously, the temperature will have dropped dramatically now that the lights have gone down to 8 degrees.
Yeah, so tire pressures are going to come in key here. You really want them to be in or around 26.5 pounds per square inch. That'll see on your dash there. But it's going to be really difficult to set up anyway. They're difficult enough for one-shot qualies anyway, because you have to make sure that they're a little bit higher than you usually would have. Factor in that it's quite a drop, isn't it, in temperature, and that's the key thing to sort of consider, is really how much higher do you need to get those pressures, and you need to make sure that obviously that you've got enough grip by the time you hit the brakes going into turn 1.
So just bear with me, guys. I just randomly got disconnected from the server, so I'm just coming back in now. Hopefully that doesn't continue happening tonight.
Welcome to Radio FRL in that case. We're still following Donkin, or I'm still following Donkin because he's the first driver to leave the pits. He's being caught at the moment by Vermeulen. I would suspect that Jared Vermeulen will... No, Donkin does leave the track at the chase. Has gone off. That won't do his tyres any good, so he may peel into the pits. So we're going to follow Jared Vermeulen, who's the favourite, I think it's fair to say, certainly for race 1. He's had a difficult relationship with race 2 at Bathurst in the past, so be interested to see exactly how he goes here as he does cross the line now. Got to get the braking right. Brakes just past 100 metres, tips the car in to turn 1. A little bit of camber there will help him round. Doesn't take too much exit curb, and down the straight he goes to turn 2, the quarry, getting into the mountain section now. So you go over. It's a weird second straight, because you go up, down, and then across a couple of bumps. Before then, you drop right the way down and then rise up as you go into the braking point. That helps the car turn in, and it really does help the driver on braking now as we go into the cutting. So double apex left-hander, so turns 3 and 4. And this is where you really do find the time. You have to make sure that you don't hit the walls. You have to make sure that your car's got plenty of turn in.
Oh, as he does!
As soon as I say that, Vermeulen does hit the wall. Let me know if you're back in, and I'll let you. I'll let you.
I am absolutely, yeah. You're doing such a great job on the radio. I thought I'd let you finish the lap as we were covering it anyway. But yeah, Vermeulen coloured green, just like the alien status that he does have, as he now dips down through 15, 16, 17, eventually approaching the dipper.
So of course he has to finish this lap. He started, so he'll have to finish. To paraphrase Bruce Forsyth, as he now leaves. The dipper doesn't need to go onto the back straight.
Yeah, through the Forest Elbow onto the Conrod Straight.
Forest Elbow, of course, onto the Conrod Straight, as I obviously knew, deliberate mistake there. As he now heads in towards the chase. It's a really difficult braking zone. So you've got the fast right-hander, which doesn't help with overtaking, I'll be honest with you. You've got a fast right-hander, which kind of sets you on the course to the outside. Going into the chase now, it's harder than it looks, because it's a tighter first exit and a slightly wider and more open second apex. Now, as he goes into the final corner, off camber, offline here, so you have to make sure you hit the brakes at the right time and turn in at the absolute perfect time. And what are we going to see here? Vermeulen goes across the line now. 2 minutes, flat .2, so the collapsing of the wall didn't really hurt him, because that's still a very, very fast time.
Not quite what he did in practice, but with the collision with the wall, I'm sure he'll take that for initial effort. And then we go on board with Starclough, who then goes 1.7 seconds slower. Coming around as well, got car number 78. Quite a lot of cars electing to come out quite early. And that...
Surprised by that, I really am, because you want the track temperature to build up just a little bit. It's Yablonsky in car 78, isn't it? He's just starting his lap. You really want the track to be rubbered in. You really want a little bit more temperature, maybe slightly better track conditions. So I'm surprised that so many are going out now.
I mean, they might be... I mean, what time we are in the evening here? They might be very conscious the track may still actually go down in temperature. So this would be the warmest track conditions they might actually get.
Quite possibly, but over a short session, as Josh Clayton goes over 2.9 seconds off the pace, the Aston not made for this track. It's fair to say. Trevor Mendes beats him, doesn't he, in the AM, also with an Aston Martin.
So qualifying is actually set at 3 p.m, so it's awfully dark for 3 p.m.
That is very strange, isn't it? If that's set it, but it's mainly, well, we're in August, so we're what Australia would call February, but even still, that is very, very low. Trevor Mendes just a tenth off of Alexander Kalugin. Kalugin going pole in the AM class at the moment, and both drivers have shown really, really well in practice.
And then Saka joins him, only about 4 tenths down from Kalugin, so nice little group collecting as he goes to test the barrier on the exit of the Hell corner.
Those top 3 AMs have driven really, really well in practice. They showed really well on practice pace, so I'm not at all surprised to see that. As we can see now, Owen Harris, is he just
starting a lap? So we'll follow the lap of the newly appointed father. Welcomed the birth of his baby girl earlier on this week, and he's going to attempt to do the mountain of hell as he powers his McLaren up the mountain straight. He's going to head towards Quarry. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, it's awfully strange here because you do start hitting the rev limiter and it comes down again. As you have support for Harris in the comments as he goes round Quarry, takes all the curb on the exit. Now, personally, I like to almost avoid this first apex and just take the second one. Get a much cleaner runner, can see a lot more what you're doing. Harris seems to be quite conservative with the wall there.
Yeah, I think that's where we differ going into that, because I think it can sometimes be quicker. It's more risky to take the apex and then sort of just
as he clatters the wall, but seems to bounce him back onto the track all the same as he heads through Skyline. A dramatic Solomon Park, but a perfectly reasonable Skyline as he now dips and dives through the S's. There's a corner through here as we have Owen's wife in the comments wishing him well. Watching from the hospital. Oh, bless you. Hope you can you and child can come home soon. But no, Harris also sneaking out for some racing, stays committed to all things important, I'm sure.
Life is about balance, isn't it? Very much is.
As he chooses not to do an aggressive turn through turn 21. Been quite a conservative lap this. He's not taking too many risks after he scared himself earlier around turn 9. Takes a little bit of bounding of the grass on the exit, and is going to compete for currently standing P4 in the AM class.
Yeah, 8th overall, a second off of Kalugin. That's a solid lap, given that there were troubles on the mountain, wasn't there? There's Paul Vidler, who's a stable mate. I think you can see by the livery, a stable mate of Jared Vermeulen. They were in parties ago, I'm led to believe. A second off, and that will be, I think, very solid in Pro. If you forget the 2 leading aliens, with Travaglioni to come a little bit later on, I think that's solid from Vidler, who's had a bit of a rocky season so far. Needs to get a little bit of consistency, which I'm sure he will.
So we've got Morgan Grace just coming across the line now. The Porsche, we've got off some of the traction zones, but isn't blessed with top speed, which is where the overtaking will take place on the mountain and Conrad Straight. But he is just starting a lap. He's taking an absolute mug out of me. But what about 1, 3, 4? That's Mr. Brown.
Gordon Brown.
Another alien-coloured car, but based on the
way
he's
aggressive over the curbs, isn't he? So that's something to watch for. I wonder if it will pay dividends for him.
Yeah, Crossman, with your absence, Travaglioni has returned. Maybe they're the same person.
Well, rumour has it, as Brown starts a lap, rumour has it that they've never been seen in the same room together. That's unconfirmed rumour, I think.
Oh, as we just had car 34 go across the line. Where have they jumped to?
Posh Bashir, and he's up into 7th. So 3rd in Pro at the moment, just behind the 2 leading AM drivers.
Just on that comment of they've never seen the same room together, most sim drivers, most of them haven't.
You come at me with your facts and logic.
I'll tell you what, let's stay on board with Adam Sharp. He's currently in the middle sector. We are expecting this one to be pretty competitive, usually in and around the top 4. So the McLaren just heading to a dipper.
He's expressed a bit of a disliking for this particular track, so and his practice form, won't mind me saying, wasn't stellar, but I, like you, would expect as he goes now down the Conrod straight, I would expect that this should challenge Vidler. I think that's kind of realistically where he's looking at the Englishman. They're England teammates, him and Vidler, in the Thursday night series. We'll talk about all the different series in the break, no doubt.
Well,
as we catch ahead.
He thankfully gets out of the way, and Sharp stays committed. How does he deal with the curb? Chooses none of it. Just like bound the outside, but that stays fairly stable. Oh, do you know what? He doesn't beat Vidler. I was expecting him just to pip him there, but no. With just over a tenth of a second, hasn't quite beat Vidler there, but does crucially get ahead of Starclough.
Bit of a save there. I think, given his struggles around this track, I think that's a real save there. He'll be pretty pleased with that lap, I think.
Just picked up Brown. Actually is going to set a lap time on this circuit and goes up into P6. He'll be happy with that, I think. We've got Wouter Heymans heading towards the line. It's quite an early line, and he does go P3, so he actually does drop Adam Sharp down. I think he'll be rubbing a mistake in that Adam Sharp.
Look at the top 3 though. All of them Ferraris, and that should be top 4 as we're expecting. Travaglioli, who's on the back straight. I don't know whether he's setting whether this is a lap or whether it's a... No, that's a...
I think I did see him weaving at the start of the Conrod straight, so...
Yeah, I could just about see him doing his brakes. So, yeah, well, interested to see. I think we can follow this. Who have we got behind? I don't think there's anybody on the lap now, is there?
We've got car number 32 coming in. That's Wazza.
Desi's blue. Oh, but that doesn't mean anything, does it? On he's streamed at the moment.
But Wazza, he jumps up all the way into P6. So Starclough, the first man to really get himself... Oh, gee, Brown, we can't hear you. It's not Brown, it's Prentice. You saying you can't hear Prentice?
Been called worse than Gordon Brown, but let me see. I'll keep talking. But no, so we've got Travaglioli now going round the second corner, now going into the cut in the double apex left-hander at 3 and 4. He's quite conservative as well with the first apex, so I think he opens the corner up. Going into the fourth corner, so the tight ahead, where it really does start to close up. Oh, kisses the barrier there before the descent back down. There's McPhillamy, and no, he just about stays out of the barrier there. Now as he goes through, kicks the tail out going into the S's. Now this skyline, before we get to the second part of the S's, we're now into the dipper before we have a short little blast down to the hairpin at Forest's elbow before we then go back onto the Conrod straight. So have to be careful not to lock an inside brake here. Get the power down nice and early and try and be on the power fully rather than feather it. Now, down the back straight we go. This is another one of the undulating straights that is a characteristic of this track. It's going to hit the rev limiter just about by the time he turns right. Should be at about 175 miles an hour before he does. Have to spot your braking point going into the chase now. Keep it to the right-hand side. Don't hit the curb on the inside because that will unsettle the car. Ride the curb on the second apex before they're firing off to the final corner. Just over the crest before a downhill braking zone. Careful not to run too wide because it's off camber out there. You'll have no grip. Through the final corner. Where's he going to go? He should be into the top two.
P1!
And he goes pole. Excellent. Excellent lap time there. Really did nail it. Where Vermeulen made that small mistake, didn't he? No mistakes there for Travaglioli, and that's an excellent lap time.
So I've just found Golanons.
That's Matthias Gonalons, who I think is a new addition for this championship. He might be as a reserve, but that's what Matthias Gonalons.
Let's see how he does from the end here. He puts himself P12. Absolutely solid result.
Being
Yeah, that's the lead driver in Am, so he's actually put himself ahead of Kalugin with Michael van der Waal in between him. But we do have a bunch of drivers who elected not to set times. So Crossman Vermeulen has missed a few rounds, so he will not. He's a fair bit behind Travaglioli, so not quite in points terms, not a contender, but definitely a contender for this race. So Donkin, Davis, Trotman, Eden, and Gedman either couldn't or didn't choose to set a lap. But your rundown is Travaglioli leads Vermeulen, first time we've said that in a while, followed by De Bont, who's about half second down from the lead there. Then we've got a little bit of a disconnect with Vidler, Heymans, and Sharp, P4 to 6, with Starclough forever putting a few cars between him and the rest of the Silver Pack in P7. Then we have Wazza, Grace, and Brown for the last of the major grouping of the Pro Tier drivers. And we've got Serpentine, P2 for the Silver Tier. Then we have the leader, Gunalons, for Am in P12. Then Marco van der Waal in P13. Then we have Klug in P14. Mendez in Am for third place in the Am Tier in P15. We have Popisil, Jablonski, Thacker, Clayton, Colpitts, the new dad, Owen Harris, Coppens, Richings, Felix, and Duda out of those who elected to set a time. It is another pole for Travaglioli. I'm just saying, not too often when we have Vermeulen actually present on the circuit is anybody usually able to qualify ahead of him. But yeah, what an evening we're in for. I mean, Jack, reverse grid around Bathurst is no easy task. I mean, we know we've got unlike last season, where they would have had no opportunity for a mandatory pit stop. Potentially, some of those drivers, like Travaglioli, like Vermeulen, may opt for that pit stop just to try and clear a few of the drivers that might get them out of a bit of trouble.
I think a lot of the drivers at the back will elect to pit, and there's almost going to be like a cut-off as to whether that's a sensible thing to do, because I mentioned it's the Monaco on the mountains. As far as I'm concerned, it is so difficult to pass here. So if you don't pass by the time you get into the quarry, you're not going to pass really until potentially you're down the Conrod Straight. So yeah, very, very difficult really for race 2, and so that's going to make race 1, critical. You kind of got to maximise everything. Try and get jammed today in race 1 rather than try and get jammed tomorrow in race 2, because it could be very, very difficult if you get stuck in a train here.
I mean, yeah, it's basically it's almost like Macau up the mountain, isn't it? Like a full. It might as well be a full yellow flagged zone because it's almost impossible to overtake. I think you maybe throw one in on the dipper, but you don't really have much time to set that up. If you can get a good run through Skyline, maybe you get alongside to challenge going back down the hill. And like you said, I think you mentioned prior to the stream starting that potentially a move through the cutting as well. But you've really got to then carry that all the way through turns 5 and 6 to really cover it off.
Kind of have to really sort of do a block pass, and kind of have to hope that the other car can see you at turn 3 and 4 at the cutting. For me, your two options really going into the chicane at the chase. So although that's made more difficult by the fact that the right-hander kind of sets your car on one course, so you can't have to do anything out of the ordinary. Maybe into turn 1, if you can get a good run coming out the final corner, you can perhaps sort of scare them off the road going into the first corner. But really, you want to maximise your run out of turn 1 and try and see if you can get alongside going into a quarry, like I say, at turn 2, because you can get the high ground around the outside and maybe block them around the outside there if you're feeling brave. It's an uphill braking zone, so it's conducive to that. Or if you can get down the inside, provided the car hasn't blocked you, then you can effectively run them up the track and try and take their line away there. But that really is the only places that you can really overtake, in my view.
Yeah, you're basically stuck in a train from turn 5 just before Griffin's Mount all the way to P17 just before the Dipper. It's really torrid, but if you're fast through there, then you can almost catch a car a lap. If you can make the overtakes on the straights and you feel dominant and confident through that section, there's no reason you couldn't catch up with any single car going around here. But we don't have long to wait now, just 30 seconds. The drivers are just making the final adjustments to their setup, maybe a bit of tyre pressures. Now the track's heated back up again. Like I said, for this one, they need to take care of the cars a little bit more. No mandatory pit stop. If they're going to take a pit, it's going to damage their race potential dramatically. But we are pedal to the metal now. The drivers, well, I don't know. I mean, if you get into big incident in here, is it worth pushing that hard to get back into it? Just maybe run it to the end, but you probably want to be. You don't want to push too far to the middle of the pack because you're going to want to start quite near the front for race 2.
I think you want to take as much as you can. If you're in the sort of top part of your class, if you've gone along to now starting from the pit lane. So if you're Kalugin in 14th, for example, as the AM, you want to push on and try and make sure that you stay there. I think Travaglione is going to have to be really aggressive going into turn 1 before I throw to you.
Yeah, so we're going to get green lights in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there's the line, you see it, and there we go. Looks like Vermeulen has got a good run to the outside. De Bont tucked it just behind. Looks like Vermeulen has got it onto the curb and he is ahead momentarily. But what can the Ferrari of Travaglione do? He's still there. He's going to have the outside line. He's going to have the camber for the next corner. But these two Ferraris, as you might expect, are absolutely neck and neck. But the powerhouse of the Beamer of De Bont is coming through. There's another confusing Ferrari in the background of Vidler. But then Travaglione is going to try around the outside as we expected, but then Vermeulen slides through. But then we look back a little bit, and De Bont is also there. De Bont is going to try it around the outside, going into the cutting. This is brave. We mentioned this in just before, but then the camber of the corner just help the Ferrari of Travaglione. But then Travaglione is then going to see that off, but then Vidler is going to start pulling through. Looks like everybody, surprisingly, has got through that absolutely unscathed. The car you can see lagging behind is that of Gallon, who elected to start from the pit lane, and looks like Vidler is getting on the aggression. But Vermeulen, with that clean air, with that very important move into the first turn, has allowed himself the clean air to run away. He doesn't have to consider any other cars when he is braking now.
Yeah, I think Travaglione was really quite kind going into turn 1. He wasn't particularly aggressive, and he didn't brake particularly late, so it allowed Vermeulen to have a run around the outside and effectively block his exit. When you block his exit there, it means that you've got the high ground going down not the back straight, but down the next straight, and that means that he's always going to be favourite going into turn 2, where he could effectively elbow Travaglione onto the marbles, and where there's no grip going through the quarry turn at turn 2.
But I tell you, the battle for P2 is hotting up. De Bont did a fantastic job coming through the mountain section, and that extra straight line speed of the BMW is paying dividends holding on to the back of Travaglione. But a little bit further back, Vidler getting pressured by Sharp, and look, he's come across Sharp going into the final turn. It did look like Sharp held it straight, but I'm not too sure. But now Wazza has got Heymans on his inside. Wazza cuts across, commands the corner, and now he's going to use his Bentley to fly away.
Yeah, Vidler, I was just watching it. I was just about to say that there was a battle going into the final corner. Vidler did move across in the braking zone. His car was not particularly straight, and I would suggest that a bit of inexperience there for Vidler, in that when there's a car there, leave the gap and be able to defend the inside corner there. As he didn't do that, as he kept squeezing, I think that's an incident that he may well have had a hand in causing.
So just trying to pick some battles out as we catch the Ferrari of Coppens just hitting the wall, and that's brought the Aston Martin of Clayton onto his rear bumper, but I don't think there's going to be much coming from that at this early stage. So Donkin has already pitted.
Yeah, Mr. Overtaker. I saw Donkin coming into the pits, but I did wonder what that was. There's him and Eden, and Eden's car looks really badly beaten up, to be fair. So I wonder if there was contact for that. Donkin was one of the lead drivers at Silver, wasn't he? Certainly in practice. So a bit of a blow for Brooklyn Donkin there, as I think now Travaglione might have stabilised the gap, might be further back. So certainly a lead duo with De Bont there. A little bit of damage on his front end. Now I think more of an issue for Sharp than he is for Travaglione.
I've just picked up Starclough in P8, really closing in on the Porsche of Morgan Grace. Ferrari carrying much better speed going into the chase. but I reckon Grace is going to get out of the chase just fine. Porsche traction is absolutely OP on this game. Only the Lamborghini can really compete off the line. The top four really having stabilised now, so we're going to try and throw some love to cars further down the track as we hop onto Van der Waal, and he's taking a dive on the McLaren, no, the BMW of Colpitts there. But Colpitts not giving up.
I think Colpitts just trying to attack him, I think, because looking at the sector times, Colpitts been a couple of tenths behind, and I think Van der Waal is doing a really good job of holding him off. I think that's where it's at now. In terms of Starclough, you mentioned, obviously, we're in P8, in amongst a load of pros as a silver driver. The sensibility here as Colpitts goes around the outside, not going to have any grip out there, and there's nothing there at the moment. It's just marbles. So yeah, Van der Waal again defending there, but I think it's certainly Colpitts the aggressor here, with Van der Waal doing very, very well to hold him off.
So the threat of Grace on Heymans is not going away, but he is starting to bring Starclough into this mix. Starclough, who I think has only lost a couple of positions to the pro drivers early on. Serpentine is close. Oh, as with Morgan Grace, just as we've seen his praises, he's now going to bring a blockade to the mountain section. He's got going again, thankfully, but that's allowed Starclough through.
Was off as well. So I think one might have been caught out by the other. has had a huge crash going in just ahead. I think one was caught out by the other, but didn't Starclough do really, really well to judge that? A lot of drivers kind of lose their heads there. He didn't. He came to almost a complete stop, trusting the drivers behind him. That's really well done there.
Coppins has been caught out in that as well. Coppins needs to get out of there quickly. He's reversing out of it. I'm not quite sure how he's ended up getting caught up in it, but he's through. And in all of that, Grace has only actually lost one position. He has created a gap ahead, but he's managed to spin quite fortuitously.
Yeah, I think there's a point there. He used the runoff area on the outside, so we got a bit fortunate there, but it's all to do with holding the brakes. As soon as he held the brakes there, he was never going to suffer too much damage by the time we come back across the road. So that's partly why the admins mandate that you have to hold your brakes. It's things like that, and it's proven true there. There is a little bit of a battle now for P3, isn't there? Sharp just about edging towards the bond. The bond's 5 seconds behind the lead, too. I think we can safely say are accounted for, aren't they? But a battle for third place might just be in the offing, with Dubon got a little bit of damage on that BMW, so might be something for Adam Sharp a little bit later on.
So just hopping up and down, back to see who's going to maybe find an opportune move. Travaglioli is keeping Vermeulen honest. He did build that gap, but Travaglioli, now having dropped the battle of DeBont and Sharp, has got Vermeulen all to himself and can really concentrate on his race as he starts.
The fight I can see is for 18th. It's Gepman is quite close behind on Mendes. They've been sort of half a second, 3/10 apart now for that's about half a lap. Mendes fighting gamely in fourth in hand, so no reason for him to move over as long as he doesn't fight too hard. And Gepman, a fair driver, it must be said. So I would say that Gepman, if he does pass, it will be hard but fair. But Mendes certainly holding his own there in the Aston.
Oh, as you say that, just throwing some love. He sends some love back to the wall, and now Gepman is right on him.
Knows what I know. I think the Porsche might have him out of here with traction. Aston's pretty good off corners, but mentioned earlier, the Porsche traction is pretty much unmatched on ACC, isn't it? So expect that to win through. We've got a couple more drivers in the pits. Gonalons and Richings are both in the pits. I haven't seen what's happened there, but certainly plenty of instances. The walls are waiting here. Gepman now looking down the inside for the right hander. That's not going to work. Is he going to set himself up for a move into the chicane? No.
I reckon if it's going to come anywhere, it's going to be into the final turn. But he does seem to have dropped back after moving out for the corner.
If he's sensible, what he might try and do is try and get him, set him up here, have a great exit out of the final corner, make him think going into turn one, maybe try and nail him on the exit of turn one with the traction that Porsche has.
So I can't even notice that Starclough has dropped a few places here. He's further back in this queue, and Brown is actually further ahead. That Starclough, you can see the back of your picture there. So something has happened to him in the last few corners.
Yeah, there's damage on the front. Grace is just ahead, so I wonder if he's had a little chat with the barrier somewhere, or whether he's just left the circuit. It might be that he's left the circuit. Come back on. Still leading, Silver, but he's not got any buffer behind him now, with Serpentine right behind him.
No, I think that damage was... I think Starcroft did marginally collect Grace. Not by much. You'd think his balance would still be fine, but I think he did take a little bit of contact through the Skyline section.
I think it's a small mistake there rather than anything else. Okay, so yeah, it's Brown versus Grace here. Two cars that are very, very... The polar opposites, aren't they, the Porsche and the Lamborghini? And that Porsche, obviously, the Lamborghini very good at the front end. Lamborghini's, the Porsche, sorry, much better at the back end. And someone actually said to me that the Porsche was better to drive whilst heavy with fuel. So we'll see how this goes towards the end of the race.
I can concur with that, whereas the Lamborghini is the exact opposite. What I found often with the Porsche, when it's low on fuel, you've got to preload the tyre to have grip on any corner of the car, whereas obviously you've got the fuel on, you've got grip all over. As Missile Dogshaft Donkin owns up to a mistake in the dipper, which is obviously not what you want
to see, isn't it? What we want to see is that drivers do own up, even if it's better they don't make those mistakes. Yeah. So DuPont's held off sharp for the moment, 1.2 seconds back. Where's the next battle? Is it potentially Posh Brazil on Serpentine in P10 and 11?
Yeah,
they're in that group, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I just don't think the Porsche, for as good as it's defending, has not been able to really make much in the way of moves. I mean, he's got a good slipstream here, but I don't think he's going to get the overspeed to make a move into Quarry. He's going to try it. Oof. Just tucks him behind. I'll go backwards to Felix, who's chasing down Van der Waal, both in the McLaren machinery. And this is for Felix. Doesn't need to be forward or backwards, really. He's quite happily sat P3 in AM class at the moment. I'm not sure if he's aware of that, considering the gap for those further ahead.
There we go. No, apologies. I had a little bit of technical issues, so we do apologise, but we are back now. So, well, what have we got here then? We've got Felix now on the back in 17th, on the back of Van der Waal. Van der Waal feels like he's been fighting backwards the whole time. He's really lost positions to Colpitts and Jablonski at the moment, but Van der Waal, he might be under attack now from the AM driver that is Felix, who's gotten better and better. There was a point where he was a bit of a roadblock a couple of seasons ago, but now he's very much on the pace and showing well as an AM driver.
Yeah, so a few sort of micro battles developing as the field spreads and cars drop into each other's grasps. Would expect Clayton, an experienced driver in Pro, to make light work of Jablonski here. He should have the straight line advantage. So as long as he sets him up to these two corners and gets a good launch down the mountain straight, this should be easy pickings.
Yeah, McLaren's acceleration's okay, it's decent, but its top end's nowhere. So it'll be safe perhaps going into turn 2. But yeah, Clayton's been a little bit off the ball, hasn't he, this certainly in qualifying and practice. He wasn't quite as high up as we expected to see him, but I suspect that this might pay dividends going into race 2.
He really threw it through Hell Corner, but just not enough straight, not enough slipstream. Or he just got hurt out of Hell's Corner being over the curb.
Watch down the Conrad straight. I think that's where the Aston might be able to make a move.
So go on to Hobbiesill chasing Serpentine. They are a little bit back from Starcloth. I mean, in this sort of middle section of the grid, nobody's really fighting anybody from their own team. Obviously, you've got Serpentine chasing Starcloth, but there's a big gap between them. Or a reasonable sized gap, and then you've got Hobbiesill and Thacker not the same tier, and then a little bit further back you've got Jablonski fighting Colpitts, but Jablonski has dropped back a little bit there.
So with the reverse grid, I don't want to sort of go too far forwards, but with the reverse grid I think there'll be a couple of drivers who will be starting towards the back, Certainly one of those is Wazza, so where he had his accident before. He's already a couple of laps down, still in the pits, that he will not make, as it stands at the moment, the 75% that you would need to make in order to start from the reverse grid. So there'll be a couple of drivers that you'll see further back, and it won't be quite as straightforward a reverse grid as we've seen in the past. So something to think about going forwards, as P8 Kalugin has a little bit of a queue behind him now, doesn't he? With Starkloff, Serpentine and Pospisil. And Thacker not too far back with Colpitts, is he? So, yeah, Kalugin at the moment looking rearwards rather than frontwards, although he is the lead ad by some distance, isn't he, at the moment, with Thacker a little bit further back. So, important to avoid risks if you're in that position. We mentioned, you know, and you especially made reference to sort of cars battling other classes. It's that point where you really need to drive sensibly, because at the end of the day, they make no difference apart from where you might start and what your potential for progress is, but that's really it. So, Kalugin, they're doing a good job, but won't fight too hard should Starkloff get a run alongside.
Oh, as I think that was Hobstill going a little bit wider than he anticipated, but he seems to have collected that up, and that has dropped him back a little bit further from Serpentine and Starkloff. He'll want to get on the back of that again before Starkloff gets onto the back of Kalugin, if he gets there.
Yeah,
the gap is under a second though.
Yes, it is, yeah. Really small bit, and I mean a small bit of runoff between curb and fence there, so he's got a little bit more space than most other places. I think it's fair to say, to gather up any mishaps, certainly around the back of the circuit where there is a lot of opportunity for a crash, let's say. Importantly, you keep your concentration if you're one of the cars at the back of the queue, because you kind of know that you're going nowhere realistically for a little while. So you have to kind of just sort of sit there and see how it plays out later on. You're always playing the long game in the sprint race. We can see P12 Thacker has got now Colpitts, Clayton and Jablonski. Jablonski a little bit further back for company. So he's in for a busy old time going towards the end of, what, the last 2-3 laps? Fairly busy old time for Thacker.
I'll tell you, the Aston of Clayton is on his way. He's trying to go to the inside of Colpitts. The camera's trying to catch up. They're going so fast. He's almost pushing him through the chase. The BMW of Clayton going defensive, just zigzagging out of the exit of the chase. He can do that. The natural line of the corner sways from the left to the right. But two cars that are reasonably evenly matched in a straight line. I'd argue to say the BMW's got maybe slightly better traction, but that's a big slide from Colpitts, and now Clayton is all over him. He's gone to the outside. Now both of them will be vying for the slipstream of Thacker ahead. But it looks like Colpitts is coming back, but now he's had to tuck him behind, and a crucial mistake has allowed the Aston Martin of Clayton to dive through.
Sensible enough, though, once he realised he was going to lose out, he does just fold in behind and fall in behind to let Clayton go. You know, rather than having a needless accident with the car in a different class. Colpitts is one of those drivers who's a pointy driver, and so that very much fits with that mantra. With Clayton now making his way to potentially, well, you might get Pospisil, and that's kind of what the aim is here. Try and get Pospisil and see how far you get.
I tell you, you might get Pospisil, because Pospisil was just absolutely ragging it, going from wall to wall, and he has caught back up to this pack of Serpentine Starkloff, with Kalugin marginally ahead of that. So we go around to the dipper. Yeah, Starkloff has dropped back a little bit from Kalugin, but nothing too dramatic. He still probably has about a lap or two to get this done, as we see Mr. Harris in the pits. That's a bit of a shame.
Very quickly, Vermeulen crossed the line with 1 minute and 56 seconds to go. So I would say that this is the last lap. He's quick, but even he's not that quick. I think we're on to the last lap.
Okay. So potentially, yeah, obviously there's a few places around here you can cut, and obviously big hits to the wall as well can consider track cuts. I
think Travelli only's more 1.2 seconds behind, so I think he'll he'll be able to hold off or be able to fall in behind Vermeulen, but he won't be getting any further. Vermeulen's controlled the race really since lap 1. 16 seconds they've built between Travaglioli and De Bont, with these two running pretty much line astern, a second apart now for the entirety of the race. What's the last lap battle here? It might be Serfontaine on Starkov P9, P10, but I don't think there's anything. I think it's the field spreads out so much here, and I'll cut just as you get to the end. The field spreads out so much here that it's really, really difficult to be able to build any kind of momentum, build any kind of run. That's why you're seeing such big gaps here compared to normally how close a Sunday race is. It'll be different in race 2, but Vermeulen here controlling the race, isn't he, going into the chase for the last time?
Yeah, I mean, Travaglioli has kept him honest. He's kept it no bigger than about a second and a half in the entirety of this race, so very little options for mistakes for Vermeulen. But he's only got one more corner to navigate, and as ever, the green alien, that is Jared Vermeulen, is going to come home to take what is normal, the race 1 win, and now he's going to go on to tackle last to first for race 2. De Bont did seemingly clear a bit of a distance to Sharp in the end. Sharp, I think, did get involved in that accident a bit early, but I personally don't believe that was his fault. It did look like he kept his wheel straight before entering the turn, and he's going to come home for a P4 with Wouter Heymans. And then Grace in P6, he's done well to hold on to that after his spin. And then G. Brown in a very clean looking Lamborghini. Doesn't look he's had too much of wars, does he?
He's certainly kept himself out of trouble, and he'll be one of the best placed pros, won't he? Certainly coming from the back. So, excellent. And excellent from Kalugin too. Yeah. To finish 8th as an AM. Excellent drive from Alexander Kalugin, and he's got it in him. He has got it in him.
As we see, Starkloff already jumped back to the pit. Serfontaine. So yeah, with that chasing pack, it was really impressive of him to come through in that way. As Vidler chasing down Jablonski to the line. And this is Eden.
Last one is Eden, isn't it? Plus a couple of cars that are 3 laps down. So I think Donkin might. Well, I think certainly Trotman's going to be towards the front, but beyond that, I think Gonalons might be the last one to be starting pole. Him and Donkin certainly, and then I think the rest of them. So Harris, Davies, Coppens, and Wazza might be starting from the back. That might not be such a bad thing, to be honest with you, because there is guaranteed to be some action certainly early on as some of the quicker drivers come through, the more cautious drivers, I think it's fair to say. Eden now crosses the line, where to finish in 22nd, it's going to be 22nd place across the line. Someone's left the lobby already, but I think that's it, isn't it? Barring a couple of there's one straggler out there, isn't it? Car number 34. Who's that? It's Posh Pajil. He's just getting an extra lap in. But I think that's that done.
So we are now, as mentioned before, we are going to do a small interlude while we wait for the admins to reverse the grid for race 2. Obviously, that's for all of those that completed 75% of all the racing laps. I do, but yeah, Harris, with the being 4 laps down now, will fall outside that, so he won't have to brown his trousers starting from the front of a very hungry pack. But we're going to just go into a quick little viewing of the race selected highlights.
Might this be the time for some plugs?
Absolutely is.
Now, you remember all of this, I just remember that it's Sim.
I'm just going to have a quick swig of my drink before I try and approach all of this.
Good luck.
Well, obviously, with this, we're going to see I think it happened on the first lap, what happened to Donkin, which obviously he had a very unfortunate time out there. With FRL, it's the best place to sim racing. It's sim racing at its very best, is our tagline. If you would like to get engaged in the things that we call racing on multiple different games throughout the week, do make sure to drop a message in the YouTube chat. and an admin will reach out to you with a Discord link or a SimGrid link, depending on what is necessary for the racing you want to do. We do iRacing, ACC, ACC Evo, WRC. FRL is your place to be for all things four wheels and online, so make sure to join in the action. This wonderful racing and the league is brought to you, sponsored by SimNet, which does provide very high quality racing equipment, which is compatible with console. So get on there and upgrade your setup where appropriate. Looks absolutely fantastic. I wish I'm looking at my rig that I'm starting right now, thinking it could do with a few upgrades, and we'll see. I'll be perusing there later on after the stream is finished. If you haven't done already, do make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We put out races almost every day of the week. You get fantastic high adrenaline action just like this. And yeah, make sure to hit that notification bell as well, not to miss the start of any of the races, because the action does start from the very first minute. And with that as well, if you're already part of the FRL community, do consider becoming a Patreon member. Membership starts at just £3 a month, and that gives you special early access to your own personal racing number that you can reserve, early access into specialist events and leagues. You also get your own practice server, and you get so much more up to date with all the internal happenings of the league as well, and obviously help keep everything squeaky clean and running for everybody else in the community as well as yourself. And yeah, we hope to see as many of you as possible watching the stream and or racing alongside us on any other day of the week. So we're just, as I've been talking, just been going through some of these highlights. We saw Wazza there taking a mouthful of barrier, and I think we did get this one actually on the stream. This is Clayton overtaking Jablonski. That was a nice clean move around the outside into turn one. Yeah, big incidents, but I'd like to think Crossman, not too many actually car on car, mostly self-inflicted. I mean, I'm sure the admins will humour at least a few incidents being reported where you're reporting nothing but the wall. Oh, was that? Did I see that right, Jack? Was that Starclough? Was that Grace giving Starclough a little push through the dipper?
Yeah, a little bit of rubbing racing, but I think he might let's see, because Starclough, I think he's come back. Yeah, he does let him through, so all's fair there. I don't think Starclough's a reasonable guy. He won't be having any issues with that. Bearing in mind that Grace repaid the favour in the end, didn't he? Gave her back to position, so no drama there. On that one, I don't think the stewards will be bothered by that too much. Oh,
as we then see Starclough actually just randomly clattering the pit wall. How bizarre. He just did a hard left turn into the pit wall.
How strange. That's very strange. I can only assume he got it a little bit loose, or maybe he had a bit of an issue with his wheel there, because that's very, very strange indeed. Certainly not something he would have intentionally done. So,
and this was another battle that we were following. I don't think we quite caught the overtake on stream, but there you have it. And Mendez just brushing the wall and dragging his car out to the side of the track, and Chris Gedman just slipping through.
And then this is weight with Mendez, didn't he? He was working on that one for quite some time. As we've got there, is that Van der Waal defending from Colpitts? Might be where Colpitts got him. Here's where Colpitts got him.
Van der Waal very fortunate not to spin the car coming through the grass, and then letting Clayton through as well. That would have dropped him down to P13. That's Harris, and that's Harris collecting a bit of the wall there.
That might be accounting for why he's ended up with the wall in the pits there. So it's really difficult at that part of the track as well, because with the sequence of 5 corners that you've got, the S's, if you make a mistake or if you have a slight misjudgment at the start, you're effectively pinballing from one side of the track to the other, and it's pretty nasty ride until you come to a stop. So many small mistakes that don't get punished elsewhere do get punished there, especially.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you caught that when we were just hovering over Harris in the pits, but the admins had done a little cheeky one by doing the abbreviation of his name or that lights up in his car as DAD for Dad. Not sure if Megan Hospital caught that one.
A lovely touch, isn't it?
It's a lovely, lovely touch.
Now we very much wait, but I think the thing with the race, sort of the two race Sunday sprint format, is that whenever we're broadcasting as we are now, it leaves, it gives the viewers and gives everybody watching an insight as to exactly how things are set up. Because you're going to see you set the camera up, you're going to see you, effectively set up. You have to drive, then you have to return to garage, do everything. And I think it's a really, really good tool to show exactly what goes on into put one of these broadcasts on.
I was just following Vidler in the hope to see what happened on the first lap. I think it skipped that. As we are now live, so having already watched this through once, we're now going to go back into the server. But yeah, as you were saying, quite crucial that everybody watching does recognise that for the console commentating, we don't have the same tools as our PC commentating counterparts, and we very much have to do everything with a pad, which has its own little tricks and complications. But we
green light, go.
We soldier on.
We make the best of it. I still think we do a rather good job.
I think so.
Right. I will be back in a couple of moments. I need to take my own little pit stop, so I should be back very, very shortly.
So I'm just organising the camera for you, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty sure that's the camera we had before. Yes, it is. So for those who are maybe running other leagues, maybe thinking one day you might want to include commentary for your own server, it is a bit of a faff setting the camera. You've got to set your camera in replay and then go through drive, change the one that you selected in replay, and then back to garage to get this view. It's a bit convoluted. It's not in the user manual, but allows us to bring you the broadcast images that you're seeing right now. The drivers are just engaging in this 5-minute free practice, just to allow everybody to get back into the server. Obviously, if you've seen the grid a little bit light tonight, it is because I think, as Jack mentioned earlier, Xbox are experiencing some server and G-Portal issues, so obviously not allowing them to really engage in the racing either at all or kind of how they'd expect to, and they'd rather not be a liability on track, potentially glitching or dropping in and out. So we wish them all the best in their troubles, and hopefully we'll see them all back for next week's race, which is in. Tell you very shortly. Which is in Barcelona. No, it's not. It's in Kyalami. As you may have heard last week, Brown mentioning the layout of the graphics for the Sprint Sunday calendar. Reasonably confusing. But we await being called back to the grid. There'll be no qualifying for this session. We go straight into your rolling start for your 40 minutes with a mandatory stop for fuel, I believe it is. We're just catching Richings, trying to lay down a bit of a marker for anybody that might try and challenge him for later. Do please recognise, Richings, that you may not be able to achieve the same speed with a stacking of cars slightly ahead of you. But Meg, if you're still watching, unfortunately your fellow is going to be starting from the back after the incident he had. He did not complete the full amount of laps necessary to be classified in the reverse grid. But obviously he won't be the only one, so maybe he won't be starting at the exact last.
There was 4 or 5 drivers, I think, that were or haven't completed enough laps. The thing is, when you do get damage or when you do crash, it's a big one, so you end up either having to port to the pits or you've got a couple of minutes of damage to fix. So I think you can still have a good race from there, because there's going to be a lot more in the way of action. That means a lot more opportunity. So as long as you keep yourself sharp, then I still think you've got a really good chance, even if you're at the back, of still making something from the race. And Harris, he did it last week, didn't he, at Valencia, when he had a really good race in race 2, just by largely keeping himself out of trouble, doing what he had to do, and playing percentages really rather well. So I still expect that he can come through, just provided he stays out of the pesky wall down the S's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll find out from afterwards if the crash was self-inflicted or not. But all we know really is that I think it was Gedman that greatly benefited from his trip into the wall. So just waiting for these 3 cars to finish their run around the track. We'll see Harris being the last one to actually hold the session up from finishing.
Well, he lost a couple of laps, so maybe if he does these, he might be able to start at the front. But at the very least, get a couple of laps in, get a bit of practice in.
Oh, as he's being pulled in. As he does start 4th from last. And we have the pole sitter of Donkin, who's going to lead Gonalons around the first turn and down the mountain straight. Or I should say up the mountain straight, because it is mostly uphill.
Yeah, Crucial is ahead of a couple of other AMs, isn't he? So he's got Darren Mark Davies and Coppin, so he's not lost. He's still got plenty to fight for. And he's got Kalugin only 7 cars ahead of him, obviously, with the way that the AMs are shook out. So expect Gonalons, if he doesn't port to the pits, he ended up at the pits last time. I don't know whether it was a lack of hitting drive or whatever it was, but I expect Gonalons to, given the pace he showed, have a really good race here if he can keep himself out of trouble. He might have to follow Brooklyn Donkin, who is another that you would expect to drive away with Mr. Overtaker in 4th. But Gonalons is able to keep himself out of trouble. I would expect that he'll go on with victorious in the AM class, provided there's no further issues. But behind that, it really is a bit of a medley, isn't it, of pros and AMs, where the track claimed a load of victims. So certainly a few drivers out of position, and I think that'll make for a chaotic race as pro meet AMs on the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that moves. I don't know. We saw a few moves in that last race, but not many. We did see a few people really struggling to make crucial moves done. So I'm hoping that doesn't result in a load of big dives in the first few turns. They do have more time. The cars definitely get more settled down. They do have that pit stop to undertake as well to maybe clear some of the traffic. So yeah, hoping that everybody gets away clean. It was one of the more impressive opening laps to Bathurst that I've seen in previous seasons. So I'm hoping we can hold suit with that going into turns 1 and 2. And I do expect everybody to just filter in after that.
I'd be interested to see exactly who pits first and quite where that cut-off I mentioned, pre-race 1, where that cut-off comes in, who might sort of decide to stay out a couple of laps to see if they can fight their way through. It may be someone like a Vidler or an Eden or an Overtaker might try and extend, whereas somebody possibly from sort of Clayton Poshmashil downwards might think that they're better off pitting on that one and trying to see if they can hold some of the quicker pros behind.
20 seconds.
Oh, yeah, because there'll at least be some pros that think they're going to have to do all the work. I mean, if they all pit lap one, nobody will gain anything. They'll just be squabbling amongst each other, trying to catch up with the pack to make the same moves they would have to do in the first place.
Yeah, and we've had it a couple of times before, haven't we, where drivers, who have pitted early have actually caught AMs. Now, tracks where you can overtake easy, so certainly even a Misano, for example, or a Valencia, where it's difficult, but it's possible. That's one thing, but here where the walls will greet any false move, should be quite another undertaking.
So as we see the Mustang of Donkin leading the cars away, they roll very cautiously towards the start line. Some of the cars still coming around the final turn, and there we go, off they go. And it looks like Gonalons has got a very quick and early run on Donkin, but Donkin does still have the inside line. Gonalons has drifted wide, is over the curb, holds it together, but then we have Trotman, who's going to slide ahead of him. And then we have a Lexus. Oh no, so he didn't get ahead. And that's Mr. Overtaker. Mr. Overtaker's got himself ahead. And then the Lexus of Trotman has actually dropped back a little bit.
Few issues further back, I think.
Oh, I give a spinner. That's an Aston of Eden going sideways into the quarry.
I was about to say there's a few issues with Richings further back as well. It seems like he's dropped back from P5, which they'll show. It looks like, I don't know whether it was him, whether it's the other McLaren, but yeah, Eden gathering it up. He used the extra little bit that you do get at turn 2, but a bit of a scary moment. I think Mr. Overtaker now might get Donkin here and then get gone. I think that'll be AM class win or pro class win, and that should then save his weekend.
Yeah, so this is only a matter of time now. Mr. Overtaker is almost shimmying Donkin along through the mountain section.
Trotman is in the wall at the S's. I just caught the back end of it, whereas he speared himself right, just going through the first at Skyline.
Oh, as Mr. Overtaker gets himself straight to the inside, out exiting the dipper through Forest Elbow. Mr. Overtaker has got that move done. As that slowed down Donkin. Gonalons is right here, and he's got quite the slipstream. There's a little look to the inside. Donkin goes defensive, opens the line up again, gets a bit of a flash from Gonalons.
Yeah, Gonalons got to be sensible here. He's in AM class. I don't know whether that'll be for very long because he's shown himself not to be, but he's in class lead and he's got a decent gap over Felix. Felix is not going to be quite in his race really pace-wise, so he's got to keep his head and keep himself calm.
Oh, as I've seen cars already diving into the pits.
That's the lap one thing. It's 40 seconds here that you need. We did this at the start of the session and did a little check on the pit gap. So 40 seconds is what you're going to need really.
So basically every single pro at the back of the grid decided to pit, all the way up to actually P10, and Colpitts is also in the pits.
Yeah, Colpitts I think hit the wall, so might be repairing some damage too. Might be an ideal time to come and get that done. No, but all you're going to do is lose out to pros, whilst the Silvers, a lot of them fight amongst themselves. Who's coming out with that? Is that Jablonski? Coming out with that? Is that McLaren car 78 of Jablonski? That's it, is Jablonski. So, yeah, he's back a little bit. He's coming out towards the back of the grid, but still, really, he's in play in terms of his own class.
So just picks up Eden. Eden's got the bit back between his teeth. He's chasing down Felix. 2 class difference between him and Felix, so I expect this will be quite a rudimentary pass once he's gone through the dipper. He needs to close a bit more in these next few corners. The time is of the essence. Doesn't want Mr. Overtaker, who's his closest forward challenge, to leave him behind. Oh, as Eden takes a massive clattering of the wall. I mean, he's still going, but
as soon as you're offline, even slightly through there, it's difficult to get it back. So it didn't look like it would do too much damage. It won't help him, but I don't think it's going to be something that he'll need to repair, bearing in mind Obviously, he's towards the sharp end of pro.
So P12 Morgan Grace going on the aggressive. He's showing Mendes a lot of his nose up ahead.
Yeah,
and I think they're being held up a bit by Michael van der Waal, who's dropped way off the back of Duda. Then Grace dives into the pits as there's Kalugin behind.
So now, if you haven't pitted now, unless you're stuck behind somebody, it makes sense not to pit at all until a little bit later on. There's a few drivers who haven't, so you've got maybe a Sharp might be okay if he can find his way through.
Oh, as he catch Sharp just going off, ran wide there, didn't he?
Just ran wide behind. I think it's Thacker. As long as it's decent pace, will be okay. But if he's stuck, Ben's the time to bet. Otherwise, you kind of want to extend as long as you possibly can. So otherwise, you've kind of got yourself in no man's land on strategy.
So back a picture there, we did just see Clayton overtaking Gedman down the mountain straight, and he's off and away.
Yeah, Gedman not making that too difficult. He'll fight, but kind of knows when he's beaten now. So I would suspect that'll be Clayton now after Eden. Let's see if he can get on the podium in pro with Mr. Overtaker, obviously building a bit of a gap.
So we just missed that, but a crucial move being made by Sharp on Popsill. So he's through and he's going to chase down Thacker Mendes and this gaggle of Am and Silver drivers that separates him from Clayton.
We've got. How did Pospisil end up doing that? Because Pospisil was a couple of cars in front, wasn't he? He was a few cars in front. So unless he's made a mistake, his rear end looks pretty messy, Pospisil. So I do wonder if there was certainly issues maybe earlier.
Oh, as Sharp takes one hell of a hit into the wall, and then he comes back and he hits Pospisil. Drama. Coming out of the Forest elbow, and he's going to have to wait an awful long time. He can probably go now if he wants to, but no, he's returned to the pits. Oh.
Heavy damage, I reckon. Certainly heavy damage for Pospisil. I think it might check for maybe holding brakes, but when you're in that incident, when you're in sort of mid-accident, you're kind of a passenger, and I think Pospisil did the right thing in terms of trying to pick his way through, but it's just a piece of hot luck there, isn't it? I think Harris has just gone off. I think Harris has just hit the wall. Bit of a soft entry, but I think Owen Harris has had more strife there. We can give him the excuse that he's new to fatherhood, so I'll win the excuse there. But he has just had an accident just coming out of the chase.
It does seem to be back going again, though, but limping. Just picking up Clayton, overtaking Felix, going into Quarry. I think there was a small tap on the way in, but Rubbing's racing.
Yeah, so Felix has held on gamely, hasn't he? But he's now going to be a familiar foe for Gedman now, as Clayton, I think, really got to get on. Because Eden up ahead hasn't made an impression on Richards just yet. Richards, committed driver. But I think Eden, you won't want to be facing two ways. He'll want to be facing either forwards or backwards, but not both. So he really does need to get this done, which is not easy against Richards.
But obviously, what Clayton's got right now is clean air up to the back of him. He's not come straight into this battle. Look how quickly he's caught onto the back of him. Now, guys, please don't cause me a commentary nightmare. You've both chosen the same livery in the same car.
And it's like Vermeulen and Fiddler all over again, isn't it?
But tell you what, he's heard me, Clayton. He's put a bit of a dint in his car, which might help us tell the difference.
Yeah, it won't hurt him too much. It was just a sort of glance, wasn't it, coming out of the coming out of the elbow. So he'll be fine. He won't want to do that too many times, but maybe he was just trying to help us tell them apart.
Oh, as then Clayton goes a little bit wide, and then that is so Eden wide and Clayton through.
That's one way to negotiate him. Certainly one way to help us tell us apart if they swap places. Eden, a bit of a mistake, I think, trying to pass Richings. Got a bit late on the brakes and then ends up trying to have to gather it up there. Clayton now, I think, is a bit of a favourite, really, to certainly finish maybe second or third behind Mr. Overtaker, who's built himself up a bit of a lead. So
I've just picked up the Lamborghini behind just coming up. That might have been Brown. But yeah, Clayton did a fantastic job. As soon as he's passed the car, he's right on to the next one.
Yeah, I want to be Richings now because Richings, committed driver as he is going to find it difficult to hold off Clayton because Clayton looks like he's on a mission. When he's in this mood, the Aston looks one of the fastest cars out there. So certainly is. We've got traffic. So that Gonalon's going. What's happened to Gonalon's? He wasn't going that slowly before. I wonder if he's had a bit of an off. Gonalon's there proving a bit of an obstacle for Richings. It won't help him in terms of defending because you've got an AM driver holding up a Silver, holding up a Pro. That won't help Richings at all. It'll just complicate things further.
It will complicate things, but may just deter Clayton from taking too much of a dive and have to make a out-and-out overtake down a straight rather than dive into a corner because he needs somewhere to slot his car into.
The one thing that that Richings might have is a little bit more toe.
Oh,
that's a.
Oh, as we have a sideways car of Richings.
It's not going to matter now, is it? Yeah, Richings a little bit too ambitious on the exit there. You really are from the eye of a needle. If you do run off wide, if you are slightly too quick as he was there, committed driver, as I say, that's usually the end result. You know, hits the wall on the outside, and that's lights out London as far as his race is concerned.
So now Clayton and Eden advancing. Cars moving out of their way like dominoes.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a kind run of it, hasn't he? I don't think Gonalons will be, as soon as I say that, he goes into the pit. So that's another one. Gonalons pitting from the lead. I think that might be a bit sensible. He did look like he had a few issues. So, yeah, I
just don't think he wants the smoke of what's coming up behind him.
Partly that, but I think he was... He appeared quite quickly in P3, didn't he? So I do wonder whether he might have had a bit of an off or maybe had a bit of contact with the wall, which then, you know, come in, you're leading out, come in, fix the damage, get yourself ready to go, knowing that the only place you're going to come is behind a group of vans, which I think he might well come out ahead of Serpentine.
So, Jonathan Mullen doing a great job. He's got a lot of clean air. He's essentially the net leader out of those that have pitted, but he still has that net time to make back up. So the crucial one will probably be Mr. Overtaker when he eventually comes in. We did see last week with Harris and a few other drivers that did stay out quite a long time and paid dividends. Oh.
What's happening here then? I've had a connection failure, I think. So, have we lost the lobby?
Potentially. I'm still clicking around, but...
Welcome to Radio FRL. It does look like the surface back. Let's have a look.
We'll try and reconnect, but we can't say for sure if...
I think we are halfway through the race. Well, it's not both of us out. That's
I've gone out as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not both of us out, but it does say that it's still halfway through the race. So I've been able to get it back. If you refresh it, where am I? No. What's happened is it's kicked everybody out, and the race is still going. So I think we might have a restart here. Don't know whether they might can it. Well, there's half an hour to go, so I don't think they will, but it's going to be difficult to put the grid together. So
as commentators, we will rejoin the server, but we ultimately await instruction from the admins. We've been told to please hold. But obviously we were enjoying some great action recently, and unfortunately server providers and the age of the game don't often gel together. Obviously we all very much enjoy racing ACC. It's still the gold standard for online sim racing for console, but obviously it's not without its complications. So people are rejoining with pit stops still instated.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that what's effectively happening is that you can rejoin the race and just carry on, and those who don't rejoin the race, effectively, according to this, get left. I think it will be reset. Yeah, we've had a connection failure, so that's probably it being reset, and then we shall see. Sometimes they do shorten it.
I've been disconnected again, but
that's just them resetting it. So I don't think that's an issue. I think that might be. that one might be planned. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's gone at the moment, so I think they are just resetting it at the moment.
So, in Ferrari fashion, we are checking.
I think it was a we are on it, wasn't it? But then Hamilton went straight in the wall. So, he said we're on it for an undercut. Hamilton ends up in the wall. So, things doesn't go as badly as that. We shall be okay. Yeah, still 4 at the moment. So I think they're just doing a little bit of service surgery on that one. We await further instruction. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one for the admins, because there'll be some people who say, well, I actually had a really good start, I was having a really good race. Where am I, what am I meant to do? And there'll be some who were saying, well, look, we've only had 10 minutes, 12 minutes of a race.
You've got the pit split as well. Obviously, it would have been much more simple. Go back a season where it was a straight shot from minute 1 to minute 40, and nobody would have been pitting unless they had damage. Whereas now the split strategy creates that much more of a complication.
Yeah, I think to be honest, it doesn't matter in terms of the split strategy. There would have been someone somewhere who would have who'd lose, and someone somewhere who will benefit from this. I think it's right that they say whatever decision they're going to make is going to be unpopular with somebody. But I think you're asking me, you cut it to 30 minutes and then just reset the race from there.
So the message that we've had from admin is server red flag. We will work in the background to extract results file and rebuild the grid of 20 minutes to go with no pit stop. They will be keeping us posted with further developments, obviously with the success of implementing said server conditions.
I think that's fair. It's whatever they do, it's going to be difficult, because some people obviously were going along on the strategy. They would have probably ended up dropping back anyway, the vast majority of them, and it's difficult, because if you make people pit again, then there'll be some people who say, well, hang on a minute, I pitted early to get ahead and now I'm going to have to pit again. So I think that's a really sensible thing to do.
Obviously, but like with a red flag or a safety car, in other forms of racing, it does often pay dividends to stay out and wait for it. So it's not dramatically unrealistic that those that have stayed out and extended to a double wave yellow or red flag condition, that they have benefited ultimately. So it's of all the things you could feel hard done by with, that's probably not one of them.
It's like with what we see in Formula 1 all the time, where you get one driver who stays out, doesn't pit, and then there's a red flag, and then that counts as the pit stop. We saw that in Italy a few years back, didn't we? With when Gasly, Sainz won the race, and Stroll obviously was second before he locked up from the restart. So it does happen. It certainly does happen.
Yeah. We're also waiting for everything to resolve itself. Obviously, we won't spoil any racing for those who maybe wouldn't have watched earlier. But in terms of Formula 1, I very commonly think that it should be, in terms of pit stops for Formula 1, red flag +1. Yes, you can change the tyres, like you as a pit stop, but you should always have to do an additional pit stop in the race for the fairness of the racing. So you don't just get to hold out an entire race for a red flag and get everything for free. I think you should have to be forced into an additional pit stop. That pit stop can come before, it can come after, but you've got to do an extra one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that's a fair way to do it. I think with sim racing, it's a bit harder to implement, isn't it? Because you have to set it. You always have to set it up with very sort of strict conditions, don't you? Whereas obviously in real racing, you can be a little bit more human about it, can't you? But with something that's online, you've got sort of very hard and fast rules, haven't you? So server's still not up at the moment. So everybody would think that trying to get the results or trying to sort of see where everybody was at a certain point is easy. It's really not. They have to go back to the last completed lap. Have to make sure that all the drivers, some who are in the pits, are where they shouldn't be. So it does take a little while for them to be able to set it up. But once it's set up, then it's 5 minutes of practice and pretty much away we go again.
So yeah, we just wait for the admins to work the magic. They are fantastic at this stuff. They've saved me and my bacon in on a few occasions in terms of setting up personal racing sessions. So they are wizards. But wizards aren't all powerful. Just ask Gandalf. So if you see us go quiet, guys, it's only because we are reading for every bit of update that we might get. So obviously there is many things to consider. Is obviously where it's rolled back to. If you were to go by Formula One rules, obviously if there's a red flag on a lap and have to reset, they do have to roll it back a lap. But obviously with this, it's very much where the server captures the results from. So obviously that's what the guys are dealing with.
I think it's the last fully completed lap. So what you might think is sort of lap 5, 6, for example, or probably going to be the end of lap 4.
The irony is, depending on where in the track you are, the drivers that maybe crash and return to pits, they actually do get thrown forward, don't they? Not backwards.
Yeah, certain drivers will be. It'll be a bit different to what we'd see from the end. You know, what Bermuda was 11th, there's a chance he might be a little bit further back. Just as an example, I'm not saying that's definite, but you know, it's because it's the last completed lap rather than where it was the moment it went out. Then that's what you have to. That's what people have to sort of consider. So you know, the top 4 or 5 will probably be unaffected, but you know, the midfield or some at the back who had who had either made their stop or who hadn't made their stop, just depending on where they were in that cycle, that's where the changes will be. The first 4 or 5 will be okay simply because they were sort of fairly well spread out, weren't they? I think Gonlon's might be a bit, for as an example, might be a benefit because he just pitted, didn't he? I don't know whether that was the last completed lap or not, but he had just pitted from what was 4th position, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, he was doing really, really well.
So, yeah, certainly if you're one of the leading AM drivers, Mr. Overtakes should be fine because, he's now the pro driver he started towards front anyway, wasn't he? But he'll be now leading from pole, and then you've got a couple of silver drivers, I forget who they were now, but you've got a couple of silver drivers behind, so there's inherently a bit of a gap there already. Then it might be Gonalons if his pit stop was late, let's say, too late. So I think then that Mr. Overtaker is probably still one of the favourites, and then you've got probably Vermeulen and Travaglioli to come through the field potentially to.
That's not discounting. I think it was a couple of Clayton and.
Yeah, Clayton was on a mission, wasn't he?
He
was on a mission in that. He was really in the groove there. As long as he can re-find that groove, then he'll be another one that will be looking to challenge. But I think it's probably between those 4. Eden had, I think he'd just pitted or had certainly gotten out of Clayton's way, hadn't he?
But crucially, with Vermeulen, who was sort of leading the pack of those that had pitted in essentially a sort of net lead. Previously, he had that gap he was driving into, about a 7-second gap to the cars ahead of him that hadn't pitted. Now he's going to get thrown into the middle of the pack, unable to control what's maybe happening behind him. And he's going to have to fight through cars that are no longer just getting out of the way because they're diving into the pits in front of him. So it's a lot harder work for Vermeulen now. These are all going to have to be legitimate overtakes for when the server does get reset and gets going.
You've got a huge pace advantage. You'll be okay, but you need a huge pace advantage as opposed to maybe half a second. You need probably 1 second, 1.5, or to force the other driver into a mistake.
With that said, though, obviously he still has the pace advantage, but he needs to wait at least probably a lap or two for a bit of field. He might obviously get a few opportune moves in the first couple of corners, but after that, he probably really has to wait for a bit of field spread to really start picking them off with any sort of ease. So it's a race against the clock for Vermeulen. We all know he's capable, as is Travaglia, but they're being given limited opportunity to actually get through this.
Yeah, I mean, what, 28 minutes you said, so that'll probably be 13 laps, maybe 14 laps, just depending on how quickly they get round to what, 2 minute, just over 2 minute laps. So probably 14 full laps that will be. So certainly, if you can make up places, what will be early in the race, effectively early in the restarted race. But yeah, then he'll be in business. But you really do need to be, it's almost more crucial now to be busy early on than it was certainly at the initial staging of the race.
Hello, Nixie. Thanks for joining us in this interlude. Obviously, the admins are working hard in the background to push on and get the racing restarted after an unfortunate server crash. So me and Jack are just here speculating over what might come of those who are probably going to be offered up the most opportunities to advance. And I think Harris as well. I think he, having avoided pitting, and I think he had pitted, but I think he was. He said he was in the lead when the server crashed, but I think that might have just because drivers were getting removed slowly but surely. So we'll take that with a pinch of salt. So potentially highly profitable for him. Potentially he'll rejoin in about 25th in a lot of dismay. So it's unsure as to yet what will become of his evening.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said earlier, someone somewhere will be a beneficiary, and there'll be someone there who's a perceived big loser. It's a horrible job for the admins, but certainly not one that I would want. Let's say I'm certainly happier on commentating as opposed to setting the grid for a restart race.
Well, let's put ourselves in the seat of you, Jack. First of all, what would you reckon would have been your roadmap of not knowing what you know now and how this has played out? Where do you reckon you'd be around about now? With 12 minutes gone of the race, we expect to be a pro driver that's come out to sit in the commentary. Probably would have started somewhere from the back. Would you have seen yourself as somebody that would have already have pitted?
I would probably, I would have pitted earlier on if things had gone to plan in race one. I'd say my pace would probably be about 6-7, something like that, somewhere around sort of Gordon or Morgan. So I would probably pit early, knowing that it's just going to be a couple of the quicker guys who might have already got past me anyway, so don't need to worry about those. And then just run your race up until obviously anything goes wrong, because of the fact that when you've got a lot of other cars fighting amongst themselves, you're in relative clear air. With Travaglioni and Vermeulen, I would have assumed would have passed me in the pits anyway. Then you kind of just have to sort of get yourself into clear air and get yourself into a position where you can effectively run your race and get the fruit a little bit later on. So I'd pit lap one. I'd come in, I'd do the fuel, and then just make sure to pick off other people. As much as I like overtaking people, make sure to pick off other people and make sure to just do it as risk-free as possible. I think we're in practice now, aren't we?
We are.
So that would be my MO. As someone who would have probably been towards, let's say, definitely probably the top 10 on the grid. I would say that means I would have been in a position to pit early and then just get out. If I had issues in race one, then probably would try and go as long as possible. If I'm starting a little bit further forward than I thought I would, go as far as possible, and then see what you can get. But
you highly anticipate you'd have been the ones in this scenario. You think you'd have been one of the ones maybe negatively affected?
Possibly, but it's as I said before, it's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? It's one of those, no different to a red flag scenario. But with sim racing and with online racing or something like that, whatever happens, when you have to reset a lobby, it has to be to a set rule. Unfortunately, it's impossible to police those who might pit and those who might not pit. You can't really do it as an honesty box. Whereas, like we say, if this was a real life event, if this was, like a GT World Challenge event, then you could already track who it is. You don't have to reset a lobby or anything like that. You just send the cars back up when it's safe to go. So that's the real difference here, and that's why it's a lot harder actually setting up an online one compared to the real thing in that regard. In that there's more things that can likely go wrong.
So we've just got approximately 2 minutes whilst we wait for all drivers to get back in, even though I think we're the majority of the way there.
I think Messu's the only one I can't see. Well, Adam Sharp's back in. He'll be mighty relieved, but bearing in mind he had a chat with the barrier, didn't he? And had to port to pits early on.
So obviously we'll do our best for everybody watching to recap where everybody else has ended up. As the admins have obviously done their best to curate a grid that reflects obviously where the server was cut off.
So I think there's a couple of certainties. I know, in the Mr. Overtaker will be leading, and then I think Clayton will be up there, sort of in the top 5 or 6. Then you've got probably Gon Alonso. I think he might survive that because he pitted quite late. He'll be fairly pleased with that. And then there was a couple of silver drivers, wasn't there? I forget who they were. My memory's gone just a little bit, but it was really that sort of top 4 or 5 broken away, and then there was a bit of a rat race behind, wasn't there? In terms of duking out for position.
I think it was Serpentine and potentially Starcloth that were coming forward.
Yeah, you might be right there, to be fair, but we'll find out, within the next minute or so exactly how this is shook out. With 29 of the original 30 drivers back in, so they've done a good job of herding and rounding up all of those that were there before. I think that's good news as well for Owen Harris. Owen Harris is another one who'd hit a bit of strife earlier on. He can now have a bit of a reset as well. Leone's going to be, I think, Shamro 6 with Bermuda, because I remember them being 11th and 12th. So, expect that the front runners will have effectively a jump start on where they were before.
So it'll be very interesting. So there we have it. This is how the grid sets back up again. So, quite a nice snapshot of how it's come back. As Harris will be very happy that he's actually up in P9. So
it made it back around. So who we got there? So Clayton was 3rd in the end. So the Gon Alonso hadn't survived as far as that was. So for Mr. Overtaker there out in the lead, Donkin in 2nd, and then Clayton and Eden. They put themselves in a really good position. So I think. And then it's Danny Felix who in 5th position as the sort of lead AM. So he's really benefiting because he hadn't stopped, whereas quite a few of the AMs had. So that's just luck. That's the way it crumbles. But you've got 6 AMs, haven't you, in 7 cars just in front of Vermeulen in 12th and Travaglioni in 13th.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pick out the car that's going to be sat in the pit lane. Car of 188 that for the life of me I cannot find on this list. I've double checked this list about 5 times and that car does not exist. Anyway, we digress. Maybe at one point the ghost car of 188 will show itself. But we're about just over a minute out before we start this 28-minute sprint, which is the exact cutting out of the 40-minute sprint based on the 12 minutes already ran. And yeah, this is how you left it at that 12-minute mark. Obviously, naturally, with a red flag, there's a lot of beneficiaries, a lot of people who suffered from this happening, probably those that pitted early, as we've been discussing. But all the same, Vermeulen probably will be happy that all the gaps ahead of him have closed up and his actual time gap to the leader has been shortened dramatically. As all drivers should be hitting drive around about now to confirm their place on the grid.
10 seconds.
And Mr. Overtaker is going to lead us away in about 5 seconds. And we should be rolling around about now. The engines get revved. Mr. Overtaker is Mustang and Mustang. Gonna have a straight shot and climb the mountain straight to lead our pack away. And we are go, go, go. He's got multiple drive-throughs back. That's Jablonski and car number 78, which we'll check on in a moment. But for the time being, Mr. Overtaker is seeing Donkin all the way to the curb. But then Mr. Overtaker has ended up with a bit of a bounce, maybe a bit of a loss of speed. Donkin is on his way. We'll eventually clip to Donkin. And Donkin is going to try it around the outside as he's got the drive on the bend. I think he's just going to be shepherded out. There's a little bit of wall, and that has allowed Clayton through. That is not what Mr. Overtaker wanted.
Yeah, Donkin really overplayed his hand a little bit coming out of the first corner. He had to run, but tries to go around the outside where there's no grip and lots of marbles, and that just ends up shuffling him back. And now he's under pressure from Eden, but not only that, if Eden does get past, then the cushion, the pro cushion, so to speak, is gone, because Chris Gebben up in 5th place is a real threat for silver victory now.
Yeah, I think, especially if there's the choice that Donkin's going to make, it seems reasonably inexperienced error there, trying to, like you said, overplay his hand into turn 2. Gedman is a well-experienced driver and he will know to exploit that. But first, he's probably going to want Eden to overtake him, because battling with Eden and stopping him from overtaking him is not going to play into his hands.
Yeah, you kind of want, if you get them, you kind of want this sorted now, don't you? One way or the other. Eden's got no need to get out of his way, but if you get them, because you can see the carrot ahead, you kind of want this out of the way. You kind of want him gone one way or the other. Can't really afford to just sit behind and sort of wait for anything. There's been a couple of issues further back. I think Vermeulen has lost out Travaglioli, the quicker 2 pros, so those that are coming through. Travaglioli's going around the outside of Vermeulen.
As Harris has spun it round and he's collected Morgan Grace. Now Harris is sideways and getting collected by multiple cars at the exit of the chase, and that was Vidler. Really, I think the lack of sleep from being a new father is really got to him tonight.
Yeah, I think as well, in terms of yellow flags, since they come out, it's you're always trying to duck and dive. You're looking as much at the flag as anything else. I think that's why Hymans and Fiddler have come a cropper. Those are two that really suffered for the restart, as Fiddler now looks what is a rather miserable race week, isn't it, with obviously the issues that he had in race number 1.
So one thing I couldn't help but notice that in the restart, Vermeulen was originally the front of that pro mid-pack but Travaglioli has jumped him and put Duda in between him and Vermeulen. But no, Duda has been now cleared by Vermeulen, so that battle recommences.
But they were side by side through the chase, and they were actually coming across Gonalons. Gonalons, they got balked by, so Travaglioli was actually ahead of Vermeulen. Got balked by Gonalons. Vermeulen tried to go around the outside, but then ran into Duda and rolls reverse there. So that's the real challenge going through Amsden. You're a pro driver.
So Vermeulen, like a man possessed, really playing with the limitations of his grip through Skyline. And I think we're going to get a move here into the dipper. He's set him up. He's gone a little bit wide to get the cut back and get the drive out. There's a nice big air pocket appearing. Will he let Travaglioli put his move on Gonalons? It's like Gonalons has conceded it. He's gone to the inside. Travaglioli's going to go around the outside. Gonalons got a bit bumpy on the curve, and that is 2 positions made up on him. Oh no, he's actually fought Vermeulen back. Gonalons has not given that one up as easy as we thought.
Yeah, he fought a bit with Travaglioli going through there, didn't he? He sort of tried to block the run a little bit and force him wide. Why is he backed out when you go through the right hand there?
Duda being overtaken by Grayson the last turn just behind.
Yeah, not a traditional overtaking place, so that requires 2 cooperative drivers. They are both in different classes, so that makes sense. But yeah, to go around the outside there where there's lack of grip, a real lack of grip there is impressive there from Grace. We've got now Eden on the back of Donkin, haven't we, for P3? That's, I think, the leading battle so far.
Yeah, I think we are expecting Eden to maybe dispatch Donkin with some haste once they get back onto the Conrod straight. They're going to close up in this section, I'm sure of it. Donkin doing well to stay composed with the pressure he's experiencing from the pro drivers, but all the same, I reckon he's going to be in the grasps of Chris Gedman very, very shortly.
Yeah, I think Eden, his car body language, what I mean by that is just how it's sort of being driven. His car's body language looks a lot more aggressive, although he has got wise safety. It's fine, no issues there, don't need to cut back to him. His car's body language looks a lot great, a lot more aggressive, a lot more like a racing car, whereas Donkin at the moment is looking just a little bit more ponderous, which is what you'd expect. Obviously, silver versus pro.
I tell you, he's keeping it nice and clean though, and he's not losing huge chunks of time. And it did look like Eden maybe didn't get too much of a great good few turns out of 15, 16, 17. He ran
right just out of McPhillamy, so he ran right just out of the. Not enough to really cause any issues, but it just cost him half a second. He just got a little bit of understeer going through the mid corner and was able to gather it up without causing any more issues really.
But I tell you what, Gonalons, since getting past by Travaglioli, seems to turn on the hyperdrive, because now he's, for at least the time being, successfully defending Vermeulen, but Vermeulen has found traction wide, and just as I said he was doing well defending him, Vermeulen has gone through. But
possibly
all the same,
4 seconds to Travaglioli though, isn't it? Look at the gap between him and Travaglioli, so certainly music to the ears of Travaglioli that he couldn't pass for a whole lap.
As I think that is Coppens coming out of the pits. Travaglioli on the next car now of Felix, dives to the inside. That's where the camber is of the corner. Ushers him out to the side of the track with a little bit of a kiss, and now he's on to Gedman. The last to first is still very much on for this leading pair of pros.
Well, have to be quick though, because Mr. Overtaker and Clayton, they've built a bit of a gap already. They've got 6 seconds from the lead, Mr. Overtaker to Donkin. Donkin's held off Eden quite well. But yeah, they'll have to be quick about it. You have to really get, clear Gedman and then see if Eden's going to play ball. Obviously, Eden being the first pro that they'll come across.
So I've just flipped back to P30. The fight, the P12, was absolutely ragging his car around to try and get past Duda. The pro driver wants to be connected to the back of Grace and Vermeulen, who are pulling through. But currently, he's got 2 AM drivers. He's got Gonalons and Duda. I think he'll be relatively surprised to find out how hard Gonalon's been fighting once he gets through Duda.
Yeah, we'll have to set him up out of here. We'll have to try and see if we can get a better run on the straight. We know how quick that Bentley is. And
Beamer's no slouch.
If he can get into the slipstream, though, I reckon Bentley, decent on the brakes as it is, might be able to get him going into the chase, going into the chicane, certainly.
He's trying to set it up. He's looking for every little twitch that BMW is doing. Like, it's a lot harder to pass into the chase than you'd think. Always, he just gets blocked a little bit out of the second last corner, but he looks to the inside, backs out of it.
Yeah, dude, there's no pushover. Now, if you was it, you try and set it up coming out of turn one. So you want to prioritise the exit rather than the entry going in here. And if you can straighten the corner out as best as you possibly can, get a superior run, try and make the BMW think about where he's going, you might have a bit of luck. Now, he's right at the slipstream here. Is he going to peel to the inside? I don't think he is, because I think dude is going to defend. No, he is going to peel to the inside. Dude has not defended that. I think it should be a pretty easy block pass going up the inside.
He's had to come from reasonably far back, though, hasn't he? He wasn't fully alongside.
I think when you get there, when you're sort of halfway.
Oh, and Servantain's got past as well.
That's not going to cause Judah any issues as long as Darren Mark Davis doesn't catch him. I think he's just lost a couple of positions to some pros, so he'll be fine there. But when you get up to the inside of turn two, if you're sort of halfway alongside, it's an easy-ish move to make, as long as you're sort of fairly sensible on the brakes. Although Wazza has just crashed going through the mounted section, so all that effort is out the window for the Irishman, who completes what is a wretched couple of races.
And whilst we've been focusing on the mid-pack, Travaglia has passed through Chris Gedman, and he's now chasing down Eden, you can see ahead, who is as close as he has been on Donkin. This has been ongoing. So Donkin doing a great job to separate himself from the majority of the silver tier. Himself and Gedman are looking to come home with a pretty solid top two steps to the podium here.
You wonder if you read, you might almost let Travaglioli, I know it's not for position so much, almost let Travaglioli try and cause some havoc with Donkin maybe, because the Italian really is turning the screw, isn't he? 2.5 seconds in that one sector there. Now it's half a second less just in the second sector there. So certainly Travaglioli on the move here, and I wonder if Eden might just use him as a pick really, as Travaglioli makes his way through.
But it's about as close as Eden has been, though, so maybe not this lap.
I think we might have a move for P6 though. Vermeulen's just on the back of Gedman.
So Vermeulen sensibly going for the inside. That's where the camber is. And Gedman did a really lucky fight at that one.
Yeah, uphill braking really does help when you're trying to make a late braking move there. It makes the braking zone, so much shorter. But yeah, it really does help if you're going up the inside there, because you can effectively use the camber to actually turn the car a little bit easier.
So Adam Sharp, who's successfully rejoined after having quite a big crash in the first segment of this race before the red flag, gone back in and he's moving up. He's in P14 at the moment, but he's got a mass amount of cars not in his tier around him and ahead of him. So he's going to want out of this nightmare as soon as possible.
Yeah, this really is the Monaco of the mountains part, isn't it? In that you've got an AM driver holding up probably 6 or 7 cars that are generally a bit quick. I think Dude has had a bit of strife, isn't he? Because he wasn't quite that.
And Sharp's gone again. We can't seem to cover him for more than 30 seconds before Sharp goes round again, and that has let the Mustang of Darren Mark Davis through.
He'll be getting a couple of pelters there, because I think that could be very damaging to his race. Certainly quite a lot of front end damage and side, right hand side damage. I think that might be pretty difficult now for him to get a decent finish.
But look what's coming together up front for P3. Donkin has now got Eden and Travaglia filling up his mirrors, and depending on how this plays out, Vermeulen should catch up to this really fast.
He should, but he's taken a good couple of seconds already. Gibbons dropped 3.5 seconds back, hasn't he? But there's nowhere really for Travaglioli to pass. unless Eden makes a mistake, he might just have a run into Quarry. He's just getting closer. He's going to have a look down the inside here. No, sensibly backs out. It's been down there on the brakes a little bit going into turn 2 there, but even for him that's probably a step too far. Now he's just got to wait patiently to see what happens up front, because Donkin, you wouldn't say he's cracking under pressure, would you? He's managed to hold back Eden, for certainly half the race, and he's doing rather a good job, and it's important that he does have a buffer between him and Gebman, with Gebman being the next in class.
Yeah, because ultimately it's... in an ideal world, what he'll do, he'll have Travaglioli and Vermeulen go through, but then keep Eden there. Seeing as he can control Eden, but probably not the other two.
Yeah, Eden's a little bit more controllable than the others.
Travaglioli's
just hit the wall, isn't he?
But has not let Vermeulen through. Crucially.
You made one mistake though, and that's look how much more difficult it's going to be for Travaglioli, because Vermeulen is now going to see what's happened. He's going to smell blood, and he crucially has an undamaged car. So this could be very difficult times ahead for Travaglioli in terms of holding back the rampant South African.
So he moves to the outside, looking for the inside for turn 21. And you know what? He's got it. He found the overspeed around the outside. Has he outbraked himself? Just a little bit. Travaglioli still with some life left in that car. Does the cutback, gets back through on Vermeulen.
Yeah, that bodywork damage that he's got, that will be dragging him back. So it's going to be difficult for him to hang on ahead of Vermeulen. Provided anyway that he doesn't get onto the back of Donkin and Eden. If he can get back onto them before Vermeulen passes him, he might be fine because he'll have a slipstream. But yeah, Vermeulen has a bit of an advantage owing to the fact that he's not chucked his car at the wall.
So the amount of stuff you can achieve at this racetrack, just if you can win the war of attrition. But Eden, as close as I've seen him to Donkin. Probably don't want to be this close to this section though. Yeah, I think that's cost him a little bit. Oh, that's Travaglioli's round. Travaglioli's round at the cutting. He's trying to.
I was looking away, but did he maybe hit the inside wall a little bit too much for the rejoin? He'll be struggling with the rejoin there.
Oh no.
We've had some rejoin issues before with him at the Nürburgring, but this is how not to rejoin, isn't it? I don't mean to be too harsh on the bloke, but he had a couple of rejoin issues at the Nürburgring, but here is certainly a rule book, a textbook really, in terms of how not to rejoin. He's just about gathering it up now, but he's going to have to stay there whilst a group of other cars come around.
And he's finally resets the pits. Eventually the right thing to do, but I can see probably a few reports going in about that. And Vermeulen pushes forward, and he's got the challenge for the lead all to himself.
Yeah, I was looking away. I was looking at another move, so I caught just the end of that. I don't know if we caught the inside wall. I don't think Vermeulen's the type of, he's an aggressive driver, but I don't think he'd have made the move there. So I wonder if he found the inside wall and ended up sort of backed up there, but obviously the rejoin is probably going to be looked at. I think there's no doubt about that. But yeah, he'll say he was trying to get back on safely, but unfortunately he can't really until everybody's gone past there.
So, segueing away from that, we do have Colpitts chasing Heymans for P14.
Fight for Am lead, really. Gone Alonso in P8 and Felix in P9 is probably the place to be, because you've got Mendes just behind there. He's getting more and more consistent, isn't he, in third place? I suspect that this might be the battle to go with in terms of not only just on track, but you've got the top three Am drivers all fighting it out.
Yeah, it's very seldom we actually get this without a bit of a field spread with drivers mixed in. So despite how mixed we saw it at the start of this 28-minute race, we found that these three have found each other and a battle will commence. But I must say, Mendes, he was a bit close a little bit earlier on, but He has dropped about half a second at the start of this lap, and he is starting now lagging behind a bit in this battle. So if he wants to challenge for the lead of the AM, he's going to need to keep it clean for a little while. But then Gonlands keeps speaking. I think Gonlands has gone into the wall, and that has allowed Felix, I'm thinking, to slide through. And now Mendes has gone through as well.
Didn't really contact with Felix there. I think that might be pretty terminal for Gonlands, looking at his car as it is. Yeah, just you make one mistake, and that's the punishment. Again. Yeah, I think that might be his race over as a competitive entity. You've got Kalugin not that far behind, having kept himself out of trouble. I think that might be curtains for him.
Yeah, we'll just see obviously how much damage he ends up incurring from that Serpentine. I think we'll pick him off quite easily here. I mean, it's not the worst, not the worst crash I've seen today, but yeah, Serpentine driving. Well, he's in a different class, but almost like a different class of car with how easily he passed him there. And yeah, unfortunately, Gonlands electing to go into the pits now. It's such a shame. He was driving really, really well. But as if this battle for P3 on the road, Eden and Donkin just not letting up. Eden keeping a much closer margin now and giving me hope for when I visit here on Tuesday with Taco Tuesday, that my Aston Martin will perform well.
And myself too. Vermeulen's not. I'm not going to say he's not really eating in. He's second behind. I think Eden's had a bit of
a mistake.
But you'd say that Vermeulen's biding his time, isn't he? I think he realises he won't get to the back of Clayton and Mr. Overtake. I think Mr. Overtake is away and gone, isn't he? But Vermeulen, yeah, certainly taking his time. He can afford to. Is he going to have a run? I don't think he'll do it into the elbow, but out of the elbow. He's forced Eden on the defensive. Can he now make advantage or take advantage of that better traction and better line on exit? He'll get into the slipstream now and try to see if he can launch into the chase. The Ferrari and the driver, very good on brakes.
A bit of a weird weave ahead from Donkin, but it's how to do that in clean air. Oh, I did think Vermeulen might be throwing one in there, but as he spooked Eden off the road, not quite. He has cost him a bit of time. Eden goes defensive into the final turn. Vermeulen tries to go around the outside. It's a tricky one. It's off camber. But what he does is a huge and brilliant cutback.
He'll set him up for turn 2. I don't think he'll go to the inside and say, well, no, he won't. He'll go for a move down there. So that'll put him on his back foot for the exit, where I would suggest that the best way to go, far be it from me to tell him what to do, would have been to set him up for the exit of turn 1, where he might have had a better run.
So with that attempt into turn 1, he has compromised himself up the straight. I think in time he will get Eden, but not this lap.
I think it will be now follow the leader through the Monaco bit, so to speak, and then I think it's then out of the elbow and down the straight again. What do we have here? Is that Kalugin fighting Haymans, I think?
Sorry, just wait for the camera to go chase it. I think that's Kalugin putting a lap on. Oh my goodness, that's a lapped car. I'm not quite sure what he's doing.
I think. Yeah, that's Gonalons.
I don't know why he just tried to make a big dive on Kalugin. That was really uncalled for.
Bit of frustration there from Gonalons. You know, you think you're leading the AM class. I'm not defending it at all, but you think you're leading the AM class, you have a really good race, and then you make one mistake, and that's race done, which is what it was for Gonalons. Yeah, just a little bit of frustration there, and the red miss. But Kalugin did really, really well to get out of the way, and on we go. And it's another really good week for Kalugin. Another good 2 races for the man at the top of the AM class.
So Vermeulen almost pushing Eden. He's gone for the move this time into turn 21. He's gone a bit deep though. He's gone on the grass. If he does rejoin safely, but he just could not slow it down in time. And now he's going to have to close in and do that work all over again on Eden.
I think you'll get time though, won't you? Because Eden's now dropped off the back. I think actually now with Eden 1.7 seconds behind Donkin, I actually think that for me that might do Vermeulen a bit more of a favour because he can pick them off one by one, as opposed to sort of having to follow both of them. You know, the toe isn't going to be that impressive. You know, for him, it's not going to be that helpful for him, provided that you know the gap stays the same. So might be a little bit better for Vermeulen here. We've got Kalugin there leading Hymans. The fight for P8 as well, which is the lead class, which is the lead of the AM class as well, is still holding up. Mendes now 3/4 of a second behind Felix. I don't think he'll get him into the quarry, but you know, Mendes is a really sensible driver. He's come on in leaps and bounds since he started a couple of seasons ago. I think might fancy class win with Felix going slightly wide on entry into the corner. No, he's fine there. But I think this is one of the two battles. You've got that, and you've got 11th place Kalugin holding up Hymans, Colpitts and Starkler.
Yeah, Hymans in a bit of a class no man's land there, isn't he? He really wants to get past Kalugin, but it's very much, he's not trying that hard because, well, why? What for?
Bit of damage too on the front, which has kind of been the story of this season across a couple of classes. Been very, very quick, but ultimately involved in quite a few incidents. So I think that might also be hampering him, because I mentioned earlier, you know, with the bodywork damage he's got, there's going to be a lot of drag. So I think Vermeulen in 5th is going after Eden. I think he's got a real run at him going down the Conrad Straight. He's pulling out
inside this time, which should become the outside.
Right. You're brave there, aren't you? You have to get the anchors on. No, he's going to set him up there. Is he going to stay around the outside? He is. Excellent move around the outside. Kind of blocks Eden's sort of momentum, blocks the line. And, yeah, excellent driving. Once you've got the high ground, once you're ahead into there, around the outside, around certainly to the right-hand side there, if you can break even slightly later, then you've blocked, you know, the run, and that's effectively job done.
So Heyman's unfortunately now having to back off Kalugin, but he needs to be mindful because he's got a bunch of cars closing on it. Colpitts and Starcloth. No slouches. Oh, that's Kalugin round! And Mendes as well. Kalugin and Mendes round.
They weren't exactly together. I wonder if there was issues there. Mendes has come to grief. So Mendes' car was really badly damaged, wasn't it? But Mendes has come to grief. He was right on the back of Felix. And I wonder if the two might have met as Mendes was limping back. But either way, great news for Hymans, great news for Colpitts as well, because he can now get off and maybe try and shake off the charging Starklov. Yeah, unlucky for Kalugin, and just as soon as we were saying what a great couple of races it was for him.
Yeah, so now Felix disappearing into the distance. His closest competitor is about 30 seconds away in the form of Kalugin, despite the crash. This just shows how well those two guys were doing. Felix, who was only a bit off them in that battle, with their absence now jumps miles ahead. Needs to take care though, because that was a bit of a snap. But here we go. So Vermeulen has, as we saw last lap, did get past Eden, and looks like he's going to make light work of Donkin. I can only imagine Clayton's looking at this thinking, why not me? Why couldn't I do this? But Donkin is going to try and fight it back, but Vermeulen's way too experienced for that. And he's up into P3 overall.
Donkin. Sensible driving, you know, you don't really want to be getting involved in anything needless when you've got such a gap. He's got, you know, 15 seconds on Gepman, so it makes no sense to be having silly actions wiggling his wheels another class. So, yeah, sensible driving there. And Vermeulen is going to take what is a comfortable P3, and so that should get his championship back on track. He had a difficult one last week and obviously missed the round. So that might, if he continues this with Travaglioni hitting problems, that might just get his championship back on track and certainly put him right back in the shop window, so to speak.
So we are on the final lap with the leader. Mr. Overtake has been a fantastic job of leading this one pretty much from start to finish. He just had to overtake Donkin at the start. Was it Donkin or did he lead it away? I can't quite remember.
He was leading at the start. He battled with Donkin for a bit going into turn one. He was more aggressive where Travaglioni wasn't. race one. He really braked as late as possible and gave himself as much chance as possible. And that's really where the race was won and lost, because Donkin held him off. Had he held him off, I think he would have done okay. He would have been fine to fight on. But you look, it's 20 seconds between he and Donkin, so that shows everything you need to. Is he's just going into the chase now, so you've got a little bit of time. We followed Colpitts now on Hyman. Seems to be a race-long scrap, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it's been very stabilised. As close as they've been, no one's really made any inroads or many efforts on the next car. But we are going to go forward to Mr. Overtaker, who's just rounding the final corner now. Look how clean that car is. Neon yellow with a bit of blue, a bit of a green nose as well. And he comes home for a very, very well hard-earned victory. You have to deal with a few bits there. And then Clayton as well had to overcome some things. And then Jared Vermeulen, who, with a red flag, has come from effective last to first. Then Donkin with a silver tier win. Fantastic job for him. He even battled with the pros for a while. And we have Grace, and then Gedman is going to come home for silverware.
Good for his championship, this. Good for his championship, second in class. He was just outside the top three. I think that might just pop him back in. He's driving there, flying
and
Scots.
Felix, we over the moon with this, with a AM tier win. Fantastic, well done to him. And Serpentine, I think they had to come from quite far back for a podium, the last step of the podium in the silver tier. Then Heymans, and then Starclough and Colpitts. Seoff Brown, I think that's Gonalon's a few laps down. He's going to come home as well. Mendes in the end really far off Kalugin, because Kalugin is still going to come home to collect a second in class despite how the incident unfolded.
Yeah, a bit of a save there from Kalugin with Darren Mark Davies. An impressive third, really. His pace has been towards the back of Am, so that's an impressive third there from Darren Mark Davies. With, I think, then the latter ones, so that's Pospis, Zeal and Vidler coming through. Both of those hit problems, didn't they? I think it's fair to say earlier in the race. So
I think everybody south of this point has hit problems today. I think Harris also. I think Harris also jumped off for an early night. I think obviously every hour helps nowadays.
Yes, certainly does. Certainly does when you're a racing dad. So yeah, a bit of a journey into the unknown, and I think that's it finished. So the company drivers hit. Mendes crashed. That's why he dropped off, because he crashed just, I think, around the mountain. Which as soon as we saw heat praise and saying how he was being really safe, he then enacted the commentator's curse, didn't he? So that's where he dropped off. And Gonalons obviously had his own issues, didn't he?
So yeah, there you have it, everybody. That's your Super Sprint Sunday. We're gonna just quit out here and show you some highlights, and we'll wait to see if anybody's looking forward to coming to give us a little bit of an interview. For the time being, we'll leave you with these images. Always intrigued what the game selects as the driver to follow at the start, and this time it's chosen Alexander Kalugin in the middle of the field. So yeah, a thoroughly enjoyable race. I think just once that red flag had happened, there was a lot more rigorous overtaking done than the initial build-up of the first half before the crash.
Yeah, they all got through pretty well. There was a straggler at the back, wasn't there? But they all got through pretty well. The back, as we do have, well, I think the driver of the weekend, haven't we? Mr. Vermeulen has joined us for a chat, no doubt. And then you've got Christopher Gedman, so a few of them coming in here. I think, yeah, Vermeulen obviously first and third, so very impressive, especially with the truncated race, and obviously Gedman being one of those to set up the second race. So I'll let you fire away to whoever you want to fire away.
So I think first of all we'll go to Vermeulen, because obviously he had a bit of a scare with the server reset and what that would have meant for his chances, but then obviously quite dominant throughout. Is that how you saw it, Jared?
Yeah, race 1 was obviously exciting, that was fun. Race 2, I was a bit disappointed with the red flag because I was in P10 when it happened, and I was the best of the guys who pitted, and I had a lot of clear air, so I really do think it was going to pay off for me because I had a lot of clear air and I wasn't stuck in the traffic. So the red flag did kind of, I think, hurt my chances for the win in race 2. But then race 2, yeah, that was, me and Travioli had an incident there, which was unfortunate. And then I had a couple of other incidents, guys hitting into me. So it was a bit of a chaotic race. So, really race 2, honestly, I don't know, I may have finished P3, but the Travioli incident, I don't know what happened there. So, I'll take it. It was an alright evening, just a bit of a disappointment that me and Travioli had an incident.
One that we're just watching on the highlights. You noticed that it took you a lap or two to get past Gonalons. Just wondering what was going on there.
He was defending like a lion. Wow, he was like, I ain't letting this guy through. I like to see that. I don't want people to just jump out of the way of a pro driver. You know what I mean? So credit to him. He made it very difficult. Some robust defense and myself then some robust attacking moves. But finally, I was able to get it done. But credit to him, man. He defended, he put his cars in the right places for those 2 laps.
What was your incident with Travaglioli at risk of getting you into any trouble? What happened between you and he?
So the first sector, once you come up, you're coming up to the hill there, that tight corner onto the fast right-hander, there's a little left kink. Yeah, so I didn't expect him to brake as early as he did. And so I tapped him in the rear as we were entering the corner. So yeah, that was unfortunate, and I do expect an inquiry to come my way. I did stop for 4-5 seconds to wait for him to go, but then I had no choice but to go because people were coming up from behind.
Yeah, he had trouble rejoining, so that might be why you had to get gone, because he ended up pulling to the pits off of that after having issues, let's say, rejoining.
Yeah, so I was just, I would try to wait there to let him get going. He didn't, but then I was like, okay, I have to now get going because I'm now stopped at the end of the corner. So I've got to get going, otherwise I'll cause a crash. And then I was hoping that he would get going so I could then just let everybody through and give him back the position. But unfortunately, he retired from the race. So yeah, but besides that incident, I think today was Bathurst, and like I said, that race 2...
Bathurst doing Bathurst things.
But that race 2 was hectic, man. Like I said, I had two things can happen around there. And then, yeah, so it was a bit hectic, and to have it end the way it did with me and Travioli is disappointing.
Well, that's the thing. You race cars, you're gonna crash cars. But no, moving on to you, Chris. Very much.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Obviously, I think for most of that race, you were sat around about P5, P6, making a few positions, but then losing positions to the likes of Jared and Travaglioli, which ultimately equalised your position in there. Is that about right?
I'm sick of seeing Jared. He just seems to go past me like I'm bloody standing still, so I didn't even put any fight up against him. And then I think I had Travaglioli and I had Grace as well. They're no part of my race, although for the full championship, yes, but I can't defend against these pro guys. They're too fast. The only thing I am on Bathurst is consistent. I'm not fast, but consistent. So I think I was doing 203s, 203.7s, 203.9s, I think, just lap after lap. And I think I maybe made a few overtakes, but I just kept my cool. and listen to all the guys in the background shouting and swearing and stuff, including Jared, who was trying to put me off as much as possible, but that's his tactics.
That's the secret, right?
So,
that's the secret.
That's the secret. So what I'm going to do is take your ticket and make sure you get
the maximum penalty.
Maximum time pen so I can get that place back, because I think Jared done fantastic tonight. He went from obviously near the back, and then we had that mass disconnect, and hat off to Rogers and Boggs. The guys are geniuses when it comes to fixing things like that. Got us back on track for another 28 minutes, and I just, like I said, stayed consistent. I never buckled under any pressure, and I made a couple of passes in some strange places, including going up the hill. I think I took Mendes, and then going over the hill I think I took Felix.
I think both of you had a few close scares, didn't you, with people going off ahead of you? I think Vermeulen with Mendes.
Yes, Mendes did spin just ahead of me, and I made it through the smallest of gaps. That was free spot, of course. I always take a free spot when I can. But I think Bathurst is one of my favourite tracks, so I didn't qualify at all. I couldn't. I lost control, so I just went from near the back myself in race 1 to, I think I finished about 15th or something in race 1, and then second in class for race 2, so I'm very happy with tonight. I think that puts me in the top 2 for the championship, to be fair.
I was good to hear, obviously, consistency in a championship really pays dividends. Attendance and results and consistency is what really boosts up a championship.
No, you don't need to be fast. You hear that, Vermeulen? You don't need to be fast.
Consistency is key, right, in all aspects of racing.
That's it.
He who is slowest shall be first, right?
That's definitely me. Definitely me.
So obviously for next week, you'll be undertaking Kyalami. How are you both feeling about that?
I love Kyalami. I hate the cheetah curve. I hate it. So that's probably going to be the make or break. But Kyalami does produce some, even arms can produce that kind of, what is it, around about the kind of 41 to 42 seconds. 141, 142 is quite competitive, and you do see some arms doing that, so I think it's a favourable track, and anything can happen in this grid. Anything.
Yeah, it's a good track. It's a good track for racing. A lot of places to overtake and go side by side.
Yes.
It's often the best track for each of those sprints.
Sunset, is it Sunrise and Barbecue, two of the most common corners where you see accidents as well, so watch this space. I'm sure the steward team will be busy.
Hopefully the home ground advantage gives me a few tenths there to bring home a victory for the fans.
So how is it tonight for yourselves? Who's your driver of the night then for race 1?
Ooh, race 1 specifically.
I would probably go with Vermeulen, because, Jared, I think we said, or I certainly said at the start of the race, that Travaglioni would need to be quite aggressive and make the corner his at turn 1. But you kind of made sure he didn't do that, and I think because he won the battle on lap 1, able to control the race from there and push on, so I think it would have to be you for race 1 on that one.
I dare to say Donkers for race 2.
I was just going to say, can I put a wee bid in for Donkers? He was so consistent tonight, and I was watching that MFD just slip further and further away, and I think he kept Eden at bay as well for most of the race.
I mean, Eden was a difficult guy to pass, and then I was expecting Duncan in the Ford to put up a bit more of a fight, but I just swung it around the outside there of him, so maybe
I just seen you come and thought, oh, he's dangerous, I'm not going near him, I'll let him pass.
Yeah, obviously, what he saw happen earlier in turn 5.
But during the rest of the race, though, Donkers there was no challenge to him because his pace was just so solid. It was just.
Was he doing 202s or low 203s?
Doing 202s. tied to it twos more often than not. Because you know I was right there behind them for a few laps.
Great drive. Well done to him tonight. That was brilliant. So I think he's not won many races, to be fair. So I think that's maybe his first win.
So well done to Donkers if you're listening. If that is your first win, congratulations.
Golf clap. So thanks again, guys. I'll go and have a wee look at this feed later on. I always do after a Sunday night, after I do a bit of admin. So I'll do my thing and then I'll sit down with a wee beer and watch the race and see how it looked.
Thank you. Obviously, you'll hear our waffling whilst the server was being reset the second time. Just saying whatever we could.
Thanks for being patient and hanging about with that, because it can be frustrating, can't it?
No. But yeah, anyway, I've been off for way too long and I'm finally back at work as of tomorrow. So I'm going to wish everybody a good night.
Nice one. See you soon, guys. Thank you.
Alright guys, thank you so much for streaming and I'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers. Bye.
See you then.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Right, everybody, so that was Gedman and Javra Mullen who won the first race tonight. Thank you ever so much for joining us for SimNet FRL Super Sprint Sunday. Thank you for your patience as we went through those resets. Obviously, we can only help so much technical issues. They happen and we deal with them, we correct them. But what we can't do is often get ahead of them. Obviously, like I said earlier, make sure you like, share and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell to make sure you're here for next Sunday, to make sure you notice exactly when we go online so you don't miss that frantic sprint qualifying. Do still comment on the stream if you want to get involved in anything that we offer, and admin will still reach out to you in good time to get you involved in all the FRL's happenings across multiple racing games. And if you're already here and you are one of the drivers that's taking part tonight, or one that just takes part throughout the rest of the week, do consider joining the Patreon, just £3 a month, to get your extra little perks, your reserve racing number, early entry into events, and your own practice server. And yeah, we'll see you all next week, same time, 8 o'clock, for Sprint Sunday at Kyalami. I've been Greg Wood, he's been Jack Prentice. Have a good night.
Good night.